Kōrau Karaka. Actually, 10:30 will probably be more around 10:40 today. Te kai timo timo o te ata. Righto, item 1.2, e whakakoutou ana o i te mōtini. I move the motion that Kōrau Mātinitini accept the apologies from the previous committee. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Randall, thank you very much. Mawai ito, oh yep, that's that one, already said that. E nai nei ka potetia te mōtini. I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Pauiwi Hohaia.
Sorry, I can't find the buttons, but yes from me.
Ko mana, that motion is carried. We now move on, righto, so I will move a motion that the Kōrau Mātinitini accept the apologies for today's meeting. At the minute, I have Councillor Matthews and Councillor Randall potentially for early departure. Do I have any other apologies? No. Righto, I move the motion, Mawai I tautoko. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McNulty, thank you very much. I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Councillor Panovich. John. Right. Perhaps we'll move to close the motion. Ko mana, that has been carried. E ngā mema tēnā whakapukina o taki whaipanga e hangai ana ki te rārangi take. There are, I call in members to declare any conflicts of interest they may have on the agenda. I see none. Righto. There are kaore he mea mahui ki te rārangi take. There are no items on the agenda. So we will move to item 1.6, public participation. No, haere mai, we've had quite a lot of significant interest in today's meeting. But first we welcome David. Ngā mihi, David.
So I figured I should come along and tell you what I'm trying to achieve. I'm hoping there's some slides that I can click through as well. Before I talk about the what, I'd like to talk about the why. So where am I pointing? Where do I point my clicker? Can somebody move it on for me, because this isn't doing anything. There's two major drivers. I am trying to, there we go. I'm trying to put a pitch together to enable major BMX events at the site, and there's some infrastructural things that we need. There's a huge amount of economic benefit to Wellington by doing that. I mean, in 2 weeks' time, we've got 550 riders going down to Invercargill. If we can get 600 or 700 riders coming to the Nationals at our track, that equals 2,000 or 3,000 people that are coming in to Wellington. They're spending money in our businesses. They're spending multiple nights here. And it's not just a one-off thing. They're coming in the previous events for practice to dial in the track. And if we can demonstrate a really effective Nationals, we'll get an Oceania Championships. I mean, New Plymouth had that last month. Over 500 riders, 175 from Australia and Tahiti coming through to to race. So there's big economic benefit in attracting the major events, and we need the infrastructure to be able to do that. And the second thing is, when I take my son around the country for BMX events, I see the facilities that are there in other places. I'm thinking, we're a major centre. We must be able to do better. And so I'm trying to bring some of the best things that I see around the place. So I was absolutely blown away whenever I saw the Cambridge pump track. And the boy does a full day's of racing, and then there's another 2 hours on the pump track with all the other kids. These are just fantastic facilities, and I want to bring them to Wellington. Next slide, please. So you've seen that slide in the top left before. I presented it at the annual plan in 22 and again in 23. I presented the long-term plan in 24. One of the dads in the BMX club has put some of that into 3D modelling based on your LiDAR scans and some drone footage and the like. So we're getting some imagery. But effectively, BMX improvements, it's about pulling the berms back behind the berms on 1 and 3 to allow spectator space and gazebos. It's about putting a gate canopy in, and I think then we can look at a small club rooms like many other clubs have to allow us to reconfigure some of our containers. It's about putting in a multi-loop pump track, so a pump loop, a jump loop, and a junior loop to cater for the huge demand that we will have from this capability. I've seen it in Gisborne, I've seen it in Whangarei, I've seen it in Christchurch. These facilities are well used. And then the other items, the dirt jumps, the skate park, playground, are all complementary items. And we need to extend the parking because it's already overcrowded. Next slide, please. These are just some of the images that are in your information pack. The key to this is co-location. You've got skill building and progression, so you can move from your 4-year-old rolling around the pump track to building skills to being able to jump it, to be able to get on the BMX track, to be able to get on the dirt jumps. Somewhat selfishly, I'm looking for the network effect of that. So as more people use things, we'll get more demand. I'll get more members in the BMX club. I'll get more volunteers to help me maintain the place. But I think there's another really important benefit, which is you've seen the Sport New Zealand report talking about drivers of disengagement of organised sport in our rangatahi. And some of that is down to the inflexible and the structured nature of some of these big sports. And active recreation allows people to do things on their own time, on their own terms, and it's free to use. So it's, I think this is a huge benefit to our youth. Next slide, please. So the slides that we put together that you've seen over the years, I turned into a website and launched that in January. I've had more than 300 signatures of support, and again, you've got the verbatims in your pack as they were at 8 o'clock this morning. But some of the comments that we're getting, I'd come to Wellington more if we had this. We're the only place in the country that doesn't have a decent facilities. This allows me and my kids to build skills in a safe place. We'll become more confident cyclists for using Wellington's world-class mountain biking trails and other cycling infrastructure. And I've got dog park users saying, this gives us an opportunity to get something better than the swamp that we have at the moment that we can only use 4 months of the year. So relocate and do both. So in closing, that's really my ask and my urge, that you work with officers and have them find an alternate location for the dog park. It's not about getting rid of it, it's about moving it to enable both facilities to be amazing facilities for our city. And I'm bang on time.
Well done. Ngā mihi nui. Thank you, David, for coming in to talk to us today, and we look forward to hearing from yourselves again a little later down the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kia ora. No, my Judy to come and speak to us. Kia ora, Judy. Welcome. And I should have said before, but people are welcome to sit at the table if they're more comfortable, or you can stay at the podium.
It won't make much difference at this time. I feel like I've got the weight of the dog park on on my shoulders. Good morning. I love the dog park. I use it just about every day and have done for about the past 10 months. A fully fenced area, good parking. It's very good for rescue dogs and especially dogs who love to run. Parking allows most people to actually use the facility. All day sun and the work done on the drainage and the internal gravel path means I think we're going to have a much better winter this year as far as moisture under your feet. But that's the physical characteristics. What do I love about the dog park? The first thing I really love is the safety aspect. To me, visibility equals safety. And at the moment, you know, you've got a road coming down Kōrau and you've got that main arterial route going to Johnsonville. I walk mainly by myself with my dog. So even when I'm by myself on the facility, I feel perfectly safe. The worst thing in the world would be sort of to be stuck somewhere where visibility becomes a problem. I've also talked to parents who say exactly the same thing. They want, when their children go with dogs, they want to know that they're safe. The second thing I absolutely love is the community aspect. As I said, I've used it for about 8 months. I have met so many wonderful people from all different backgrounds, all different ages and lifestyles. I mean, it is a real community meeting place. And I think, you know, we just seem to be destroying them willy-nilly. And I think this is what community is all about. So often we're sort of marginalised into sort of, you know, particular groups. This allows so many people to get together and talk and argue and, you know, exchange views. Look, it's a great place as far as, you know, it caters for early morning workers. The earliest one goes in about 6:30 in the morning. Shift workers, retirees, people with children, all of them use this facility. You can't go too much without sort of comparing the two facilities at the moment. The dog park is used 7 days a week, from early in the morning till just about when the sun goes down. You usually have multiple users on there. You look across at the BMX, it's used, I think, during the weekend and on a club night. I had occasion last Saturday to walk down, and I thought, oh, it'd be interesting to see who exactly is on the BMX. No one was there, and yet 8, 9, 10 dogs were all running in the sunshine. People leaving, people coming, you know, exactly how it should be. So, I mean, it's just great. Now, the last speaker was talking about the revenue sort of ensuing. Well, to me, you know, there are other things that make us rich, and I think a sense of community is one of them. And, you know, it's just such a wonderful feeling when you're watching the dogs and they're running free and they're running, you know, backwards and forwards, having such fun. People are smiling. You know, it makes my heart smile. So I think that's a big plus for the dog park. One thing I was asked to mention was that I met a man who works in civil defence and disaster relief, that, you know, we've got to have an area like this designated for if a disaster happens in Wellington, and people need a facility to take their dogs and their owners, I suppose. Okay, now going forward, I think the huge thing that people really sort of got quite upset about was the way, without saying, you know, making it too sort of conspiratorial, that, you know, they didn't have occasion to have input into the proposal. And so 2 words sort of came: transparency and collaboration. You know, there are other people beside the dog park, the other dog users, the other park users, the residents. You know, we all have to have some sort of input into this. There's nothing worse than having a proposal imposed on you. It hardly makes for sort of, you know, good community relations. So thank you very much for your time.
Kia ora. Thank you, Judy. Right, I don't see any partai, so with that one we will roll on to the next speaker. Chris Wood.
Hi, thanks for allowing me to speak. I am part of the committee for the Wellington Skateboarding Association, and I'm also a judge for World Skate, who run the Olympics for skateboarding, and also the head judge for Skateboard New Zealand. But that aside, and today what I'm really speaking of is I'm a parent who lives in Kōrau, and I've got a 3-year-old toddler and another one on the way. I absolutely love this idea. I'm a big advocate for what skate parks and bike tracks do to help get kids out of the couch. Help build their confidence, and also, a creative outlet for them to build social skills and learn independence and teach them resilience as well. So I love David's idea about, having the skate park, the bike track, the pump track, and there's mention of the playground as well, all in the same area. And the reason why I think it's really important to keep it all in the same area is that when you have more than one kid, kids don't always want to play on the same things. Sometimes you might have one kid who wants to be in the playground, especially if the ages are different, another kid who wants to go to the pump track. If you separate those out and you have them further away, that's just not going to be feasible to keep an eye on your kids all in one spot. Whereas if you have like a central hub where, on the weekends you can take your family down and you can use this, amazing proposal for a really good facility, I think it would be excellent if it's all kept in the same area from a family safety point of view. And also just to challenge what the last speaker said, I often take my toddler, a 3-year-old who's bike mad, on the balance bike straight after daycare down to the BMX track, and we just ride the mellow part of it. And so even though you're not always seeing people are using it, there are people who are using it, aside from when the BMX club is using this stuff. I mean, he's not quite at the confidence level to ride with a lot of the club guys, but he loves going there nonetheless. It's like his favorite thing to do, and he always wants me to take him there. And yeah, I think this is a fantastic opportunity for the whole community, and especially Kōrau with the massive bike network we have, that you don't always have, you can't actually really take toddlers up to the mountain bike park and keep an eye on them. And also with kids as they grow older, it's really good to have somewhere to progress to. A lot of kids drop out of sports because it's limited of where they can progress to. I often see it with skate parks when they're very small, or they don't cater to progression. And it's the same with bikes as well. You need to build somewhere to go, and I would love to see some really great athletes come from the area, and that's what you see in the big cities which have the best facilities, is the best athletes come from those cities. That's all I've got to say. So thank you for listening. Thanks.
Kia ora, Chris. He pātai au colleagues, any questions? Councillor Chung.
Great, thanks very much for talking to us this morning. Do you think that it's possible to coexist with a dog park around there as well? Because we have a lot of people saying that they want to retain that dog park, but if the BMX track actually increases its size and expands, then of course there's no room in that particular place for it. So what would your suggestion be to cater for both groups?
For me personally, I think like David mentioned, if there was somewhere else around that area, I don't know where the actual area proposed to move the dog park is to, but if you were to move it and try and take the feedback from what the dog park users are saying, and then also improve it in some way, so they're actually gaining something, I think that'd be really good. Unfortunately, I just don't see how there's enough space to keep it where it currently is and go ahead with a proposed development with such an amazing facility for youth and around Kōrau.
Great, thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Chris. There appears to be no further pātai. Thank you so much for your time today. Righto, got a bit of a veteran for public participation today. No, my Don McDonald. Kia ora, Don. You know the deal. Feel free to sit at the table if you feel more comfortable.
Possibly.
Cool, just make sure the green light's on the mic.
Now, I've been here 100 times before. Now, job number SR 455. Kia ora, Don. Thank you for your email. We'll review this and reply within 24 hours. Well, see, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't even say what the job is. That's what you get. The next picture is leaf litter by the zoo, a ton of dead leaves, and feeding the pigeons, all the flats. And this one here, participation, let me see, RNZ, Radio New Zealand, NUA, false news. You understand, I do straight talk. If you know your work, it's not difficult if you know your work. Now's the time to answer. Do the proper job, and then you'll get your proper pay. Terry councillor, never substantial answer for 50 years. Not Terry, but as I say, Wayne City Council, you never get a substantial answer. Lagoima, ombudsman. Rude emails. These emails don't say anything. The Southern councillors, and Iona and Geordie. Rich pay, yeah. Greedy me, please yourself, turn over.
Don, apologies to interrupt, but if we could try and avoid specifically mentioning councillors, that would be helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you. Street cleaning, 74 Russell Terrace. They don't give a date and the time. It takes 3 years to do any job. 5 years. The job doesn't get done. And the ombudsman never, they always ignore. Skip notifications, yes. This is about branch punch, a lot of branch punch in the eye. Accident, serious injury. Plainly, the anonymous chief. No genuine concern. There was an accident, no genuine concern. Now, I don't go to my phone. How are we going for time? 3 minutes ago. Yes, here we are. The above has been marked by the team as resolved. That's the common saying. It's been resolved. If it hasn't been, well, no, what do they do? Customer feedback, 4 Oxford Terrace, Mount Cook. Job number 440. Thank you for your request. We do not manage this building. Any complaints regarding Whakamaru would have to be directed directly to Wellington City Mission. Well, there's a complaint. There's a problem there. A big accident. Big mistake. Now here we are. Lagoima, never substantial answer. You ask a question, never substantial answer. The library, there's not enough printers. I never hear from the government. It's not a proper answer. I'll give you examples. Never a proper answer. Talk and text. We want a full audit of the call centre. Assurance. I don't want automatic reply. It doesn't say anything. I want it signed off by a senior officer. And the Chinese grocer. It could be, yes, as you know his name. Now we turn over. They say service request received. Well, I just say log fixes answer. Fixes is no answer, sans. Fixes is no answer. A million jobs and they don't do them. The whole truth. That's what the newspaper says, the whole truth. Well, you can judge for yourself if that's the truth. No noise limit. Okay, no noise limit. Thank you for the busker, the Sallys and dangerous gals, etc. Another one, street cleaning and growth. Job number 870. That's all nonsense. The answer comes back all nonsense. Nothing happens. Reported for 9 years. All these jobs, Wellington City Council, that's a lot of words. Reference SR 108 1870. Thank you for your. That's all nonsense, nothing. Thank you for your SR. Another one. Councillor said bus lane paid 220 million. We have to find out how much they paid for the bus fine, for the bus lanes. We've been asking for 7 weeks and there's still no answer. There's still no answer. Even the chair asked that question and they don't know. And Southern Council doesn't know anything. They go on the radio. The above. Wednesday Council, the above. SR, thank you for your. Now, time is up, but we have to answer these questions and a review and chuck the Ombudsman out. And where's the Observer and where's the Ombudsman and Iona and her? Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Don. You've been very clear today. We appreciate it.
Clear as anything.
Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Kia ora. No, my Claudia from Word to come and talk to us today.
Kia ora koutou. My name is Claudia Brochu. I'm the program manager for Word Wellington, and I'm here today to support David and his project to build a wheel hub and pump track at Ian Galloway Park. I am also a mountain biker, a certified mountain bike instructor, and dare I say it, a fairly active member in our mountain biking community. First thing, what is Word? We are a non-for-profit mountain biking coaching organization for young people aged 7 to 17 years old, based in Wellington and in Wanaka. WORD stands for World Off-Road Department. Our Wellington team is made of 45 instructors, and we coach 300 to 400 kids all year round, either during our after-school programs or school holiday camps. Word was founded in 2013 with a very humble purpose to save the world one ride at a time. What does that mean? Well, jumps, skills, and speed put aside, our main mission is really to empower young people through mountain biking by helping them build confidence, develop leadership skills, and foster a lifelong love for the outdoors. Our values are connection, adventure, equity, embracing change, and always remaining youth-centered. And by applying those values through our coaching and our sessions, we believe we can help shape a better future by inspiring our participants to grow into kind, resilient, and connected humans. Throughout term 1, 2, and 4, we run after-school programs. These are a series of 7 sessions of 2 hours each, where we teach and practice mountain biking skills. And we also run school holiday camps during January, April, July, and October school holidays. In this day and age, where technology is omnipresent, we believe it often discourages children from connecting to one another. And I and Word believe a place like a pump track wheel hub could become a gathering point where young and less young people can find a sense of belonging. A pump track is not just a piece of infrastructure, it's a space for recreation, skill building, and for bringing people together. We see pump tracks have been growing in popularity, and for good reasons. They provide an accessible and inclusive space where riders of all skill levels can come together, learn, share experiences, as those pump tracks are beginner-friendly, but also offer challenges to advanced riders as well. For us in the instructing world, one of the biggest advantages of a pump track is its ability to become a teaching ground for essential mountain biking skills such as body positioning, balance, cornering, maintaining momentum, and even the foundations into jumping skills. Unlike riding on traditional trails, pump tracks provide a controlled environment where riders can practice their bike handling skills whilst having fun as well. Wellington obviously is known for its strong winds and for its steep streets, but we are also a city of active, outdoors loving people. And as we've seen in other cities like Rotorua, Nelson, and Christchurch, pump tracks tend to become vibrant community hubs. They encourage intergenerational play where kids, teens, and adults can ride together, share experiences, form friendships. They offer a healthy alternative to screen time and encourage children and young people to get outside, be active, and engage in physical activity in a way that feels like play rather than a structured exercise. The benefits of a pump track would go beyond recreation. They would contribute to the overall well-being of the communities, as studies show that access to outdoor recreational spaces lead to improved mental health, greater social cohesion, and increased community pride. To wrap up, I want to highlight that this project is much more than just building a track. It's about creating a space where young people can find a sense of belonging and where a community can grow and thrive, and where Wellington can continue to lead the way in providing world-class recreational opportunities. For all of the reasons above, myself and Word wholeheartedly support the project for the Ian Galloway Wheels Hub, as we believe it will give our young people a safe space to upskill, grow, and connect. Thank you for your time. 3 seconds for a question.
No, Mai, thank you so much. I don't see any further pātai.
Love the photo.
There's a note that we love the photo. That's coming here. Aye. Kia ora. Righto, ngā mihi nui Murray Edridge on behalf of Wellington City Mission. Kia ora, Murray.
Kia ora, morena tātou. Good morning. On? Good. You live in a fascinating world. I love bikes, and I love dogs, and I love Don. And you've had all three this morning. This is not my first time talking to this council, but this morning I'm not going to ask you for any money, so you can just relax. But I do want to comment on the city safety and wellbeing plan. 3 things I want to say this morning. The first is I want to commend you as a council on the work that's been done to date. I want to give you a perspective from what I and my team see at the city at the moment. And finally, I want to give you a commitment on behalf of the Wellington City Mission to work with council to support the implementation of this plan. So firstly, you're very fortunate to have a Chief of Staff who is as competent as she is. And I think she's done a remarkable job in putting the city safety and wellbeing plan together. We've had consultation with council in ways we haven't seen for quite a while. And as a consequence, what you've got before you, I think, is a well-reasoned, rational, sensible plan that has other people sitting around the table as well, and together we can make a difference in this space. I'm delighted to read the paper you have in front of you, because I do think it actually represents a way forward. Because we've been sitting and talking about this sort of thing for quite a long time now. And I've been part of the Paniki Promise and various other previous iterations. I'm a bit of a stuck record, and I think people regret inviting me to the meetings, because my constant refrain is this is not about keeping some of us safe from the rest of us. This is about ensuring that everybody in our city is safe, irrespective of their circumstances. And I think we've got the start of something really good here, so I do encourage you in the context of your meeting today to approve the plan and allow it to happen, and then use it as a basis for future conversations and for future investment decisions. What are we seeing in our community at the moment? And I asked my team specifically to give me some advice on this over the last few days. We are seeing more, and by that we're seeing more people with more challenges, and they're more complex. I sat in a function in the stadium a couple of nights ago and heard the Prime Minister claim that one of the successes of this government was a reduction in emergency housing. Didn't feel like it was the appropriate event to heckle, but in fact we haven't seen a reduction in emergency housing, we've seen a reduction in access to emergency housing, and we are seeing that on the streets every single day. We have more people who have nowhere to go. and more people that are struggling with a range of health and mental health and addiction conditions that are not being responded to. And one of the challenges, I think, and one of the opportunities this plan presents is to connect more with health, because health does not effectively sit at the table. And yet until we can get access to mental health services and addiction services that are timely and responsive, we're not going to make enough progress. It's an interesting thing when you're a community provider like we are, because we tend to concentrate the problem, and then the neighbours blame us for bringing it to them. Let's be clear, nobody's bringing anything to anybody. The issues we have are here. As I say, my acknowledgement is we do tend to concentrate people, and that increases the challenges. But actually, it's a responsibility of all of us to respond in the way we have. I believe there might have been some concern about a homelessness response being part of a city safety and wellbeing plan. My response to that is that's exactly where it belongs, because actually we need to have a wraparound response to the people that are there. Housing is a significant part of that, but so is mental health response, so is addiction response, and so is keeping everybody safe, both those who are most vulnerable, who often get typified or victimised as those who are responsible for city safety failures. And in fact, they're the ones, I believe, who are most vulnerable in this space. I love paragraphs 61 to 64 in this paper. They're part of the Pillar 2 response, and I think they're extremely well articulated. We now sit with whakamaru operating 24/7 in the city, and you might have seen an announcement from Minister Matt Ducey earlier in the week where the government have partially funded a response to particularly overnight concerns of people, which is the establishment of a crisis cafe, which will run out of whakamaru 24/7. You might have seen 24/4 in the papers. That's about what government pays for, but it'll be 24/7. And this is a response to people who need support. I think, in fact, we have the infrastructure in the city now. We have the agencies in the city who are capable and able to respond to the needs we're seeing. The major opportunity is to draw them together, and that's the major challenge as well. We're meeting recently in the last couple of days with emergency services, police, with ambulance, with the universities, to say how do we connect the bits that we've all got in a way that we've got an effective response to those that need help. I can tell you on behalf of the Wellington City Mission that we are in this process with you. I have said to Sahai already that we are committed to this process. Whakamaru, tipamaru, and I could tell you stories all day about what's happening in those spaces. It is very powerful, it is very effective. And when we put our stuff together with DCM, with He Rangakura, with the police and emergency services, and with council, we will achieve some progress in this space. I'm happy to answer any questions you have in the last 3 minutes 39 that we have.
Kia ora, Murray. First parte, Councillor Pennant.
Thanks, Murray, for all the work you do. There are 3 paragraphs which still link homelessness and though with feelings of a lack of public safety, which I'm concerned about. I was just wondering if you could respond to that. That's 59, 62 and 64. And also, do you believe that this strategy will actually get to the causes of homelessness? Thank you.
Look, yes, causes, that's a big ask. I think it will help respond initially to the consequences. Then we have to work on the causes. The causes ultimately are insufficient housing, insufficient social support for people, and those things are long responses. I think this gives us an opportunity to start an engagement, or to continue an engagement, but in a more coordinated way, which will start to see some different response. But this is the right place to do it, without question in my mind.
Second parte, Deputy Mayor Foon.
Kia ora, Murray. Thank you for being part of this kaupapa. I think you've touched on this already, but that the perception of people feeling unsafe is something that we are dealing with every day trying to respond to that. What would you say to these people if it were you on the street? How can you help us respond to them?
Look, I think the word you use is the right one. It's about perception, and it's a lack of understanding of people's circumstances. See, one of the things you'll hear me talking about in the days ahead is that we've got an underpinning principle which I've stolen from somebody else, which is revolutionary, and that is that every person, no exceptions, is unshakably good. They behave the way they do, they represent what they do because of circumstance, because of unwellness, because of their history. And if we have that as a core principle, and you will hear me talking about that more, then it's how do we respond to the circumstances and the environment that causes the situation that they're in.
Pātai, Councillor Wenera.
Kia ora. So just to be totally clear, you're satisfied with our approach in terms of subsuming the homelessness action plan as part of this broader strategy, and you don't feel that a separate homelessness strategy would be required?
No, I think this is the right place to deal with it, because the fundamental requirement for people that are homeless are safety and well-being. And so as long as this plan isn't about, as I said earlier, protecting some of us from the rest of us, then actually this is the place it should reside.
I'll allow time for one more quick question. Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much, Murray. I walk through town every morning, Monday to Friday, and I talk to these people, and it seems to me that some of the people, I ask them, have you got a place to stay? And so, would you like a home? But some of them, they said they're not after a home, they've got a place to stay, but they want different types of help. They want, they want money. And so, and when they don't appear, and I see them again
just
later.
a quick question, please.
Okay, so I think, do you think that all the people we see out there are actually without a home?
I think anybody you see out there is struggling, and they're struggling with a whole lot of things, and they're making choices between unpalatable options for themselves. And we're not in a position, I don't think, to judge that choice. And I'm not sure we fully understand, in most cases, anybody's circumstance, but they're there not by their own choice.
Great. Thank you.
Ngā mihi, thank you very much, Murray. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Kia ora. No mai Wakina from the African Communities Council Wellington. Kia ora. If you feel more comfortable, you're welcome to sit at the table, and you've got 10 minutes if you wanted to leave any time for questions. Hi. Just make sure your mic's on. Sorry. Perfect, thanks.
Hello. Nice. Kia ora, everyone. It's good to see. It's good to be back here. Regarding the last time I was here, it was the establishment of the Ethnic Communities Advisory Group, which has been fully established, and just the other night I was elected as the co-chair of that, so hopefully you'll be seeing a lot more of me. I like to begin with a story, if that's okay, and it'll tie into the city safety plan and the way it is. This is anchored around Luke Smith. Luke Smith's family moved to Wellington from South Africa just a year ago. And they came in the hopes, they came with hope in their heart in the search of a safer community for their son, Luke Smith. This is Natasha and Phil. And on October 6th, Luke's mother got a phone call that any mother should not get. I don't know if anyone's familiar with what happened with Luke in that regard. In the early hours of the 6th October, her son was fully on life support and had been cowardly sucker punched on his way home from Courtney Place. And there's legislation moving to see if that coward's punch should be moved. We're going to focus Placey here. On the night of Luke's death, Siali, the murderer, was kicked out of a club for aggression and for fighting. So in that moment, the bouncers saw a person that was not safe for their venue and released him onto the streets. I repeat that. So the venue itself was safe now, and this predator was let loose. And on this occasion, Luke Smith was the one that was tragically sucker punched and killed. it could have been any one of Wellingtonians. And so the campaign that Vadsa ran was Luke is Us, was a campaign that it could have been any of us. So when I talk about the city safety plan, I would urge you guys to keep in mind, this is the voice of the Victoria University African diaspora that I am raising, as well as the African community who feel their children are not safe, or they don't feel safe letting their children be children. As any of us grew up going out in the nightlife, there's a raised concern from a community whose voice may not be clearly heard. So I urge you to do that. Sorry, I'll record a stat that was within the VER report where it says, from the Victoria University survey that mentioned 82% of respondents felt unsafe at night, with 60.4% reporting frequent harassment. The Salient report, which is a university paper, revealed that 75% of students felt unsafe in nightclubs, citing harassment, groping, and assault. These concerns are highly gendered, with young women and gender minorities disproportionately affected. So this says Luke's story is not unique. It reflects a broader pattern of vulnerability. Their members, they feel unsafe. And the data in this plan doesn't even begin to capture the full context of the experiences. Cool. In the same light, I would like to acknowledge the officers that complete the city safety plan, and understanding that this is no small feat. This is preparing a safety plan for all of Wellington is nothing short of undertaking. So I acknowledge their mahi if they are in this room, and kia ora to that. And where I raise my concerns is in the hopes of improving and raising voices that may be missed. And I'll be the first to raise my hand where I've misread or misinterpreted anything in this report. So, and reassure you that our goals are the same. We're on the same team. I'm not coming here being like, what about us? I'm just trying to improve where it regards to. The city safety plan, what it plans and what it promises. There are many worthy initiatives, but it fails to address systemic inequalities faced by marginalised groups. Would this plan have protected Luke? Would it protect others like him now? Key issues. The ethnic patrols remain unfunded. So I think that was page 16, pillar 1, action 1.2 is empowering and investing in our community patrols. The plan invests in CCTV, urban liaison teams and safety spots, but ethnic patrols are listed as delivery partners without allocated funding. This is both a question I hope you will raise to the officers to confirm, because if that's this. And why this matters, ethnic patrols are expected to operate in high-risk areas yet rely on volunteers. Without paid positions, this initiative is unsustainable, and we know this. We know this from any voluntary positions where we rely on the love and care of our communities. Another key issue is a lack of explicit consultation with ethnic communities. Again, this is, if I missed this, this is page 26 and 27, program principle 4, pillar 4, moving forward in our integrated and enduring way. The plan emphasizes a community-centric approach but does not mandate structured consultation with ethnic communities or others. Again, I may have missed this. While the plan references collaboration with community representatives and stakeholders, there's no specific mention of widespread public consultations, such as public workshops with Wellington residents, let alone... again, especially when you've stated that gender minorities are disproportionately affected, you assume they would have a say in the plan. So what I'm asking the council to do, and I'll leave some time for questions, I'm not asking you to reject the plan. I'm asking you to improve it by implementing the following recommendations, or more seek clarification with officers when they come up. 1, approve funding for paid ethnic patrols. Direct the grant subcommittee to allocate funds for paid patrol positions that are the second line of defence. Volunteers cannot sustainably patrol without financial support, and this allows for a presence that isn't necessarily police, and understanding the relationship that police have with our communities is actually just not best. And so you don't have to include that. Fair that they're there, they can still be young and out in town, but there is a barrier that catches unreported data, especially regarding racially attacked abuses. 2 is formalised consultation with ethnic communities. Again, with the Ethnic Communities Advisory Group, this is something that should be raised so obviously up. We're doing this, what do you think? Is there something you would like to raise on top of this? This was, again, not done to my knowledge. The third one, probably the most important, is integrate anti-racism measures into nightlife safety. So page 25, pillar 3, action 3.5, expand sexual violence prevention training to include anti-racism modules for hospitality staff and event responders. So on that, how do we add anti-racism measures to our upskilling? Again, such a small, important part to embed into the way to do it. And the fourth one is to publish the disability safety data. I know it says in the plan to publish that stuff, but we need it to allow our communities to make initiatives and changes that they could use to directly help our own communities. So racially reported data is not something that is recorded or put into that. So inclusion safety for all, not just some. I think there's a big group of people that's missed out. Again, this is a common theme that plays out as our lack of engagement from ethnic communities isn't that prevalent. But Wellington City Safety Plan must centre the needs of the most vulnerable. Luke Smith's death and stories of countless young women ethnic minorities remind us that our safety is not universal. So I urge you to amend the plan or consult with the officers and include paid ethnic patrols, formalised consultation, and targeted anti-racism measures, and approve the plan with these modifications and ensure delivery on its promise of a safety for all. A city that prioritizes safety for vulnerable residents is a city that's safe. I've got 2 minutes, probably enough for a question if you need to. Kia ora.
Kia ora, ngā mihi nui, thank you. I think there are a few amendments coming to try and address a few of those things. And we'll make sure that we get the specific wording for what you've brought to us today. We'll grab that off you before you leave.
Okay.
Right, I'll give you back a minute for pātai because I used one up. Righto, Councillor Pannett.
Thank you. I agree, and one of the amendments is hoping to address your concerns. My question is, do you think this plan will succeed without looking at the systemic causes of violence against ethnic minorities, women, girls, rainbow communities, etc.?
Obviously a hard question to do, but I'm a man of more action rather than sitting in office and trying to prepare the perfect plan, get something out there and implement improvements as it goes. And on the basis, this safety plan is good. Going through it, it is a big ask, and it was a good structured plan that just lists some voices.
It doesn't talk about
no, Councillor Pannett, we're not debating. Thank you.
I wish, Pannett, we could.
Councillor McNulty.
Just very quickly, could you inform some of us less enlightened about the work the paid ethnic patrols are doing in the city?
So there isn't, I've just familiarised myself with them as much because that just says it. I don't see them around as much. To be fair, I don't go out as much as I once did. But they're literally a presence that walk around. So he's got Māori wardens and these other ones. They're just a presence in between police, and they will report, give first aid, or connect services that are more trained than they are. And the plan does say that we'll train them and put more safety equipment, all that. I'm just saying pay them.
Councillor Abdurrahman.
Workina, you're such an articulate young person. Just quickly tell us a bit about us in 30 seconds.
Tell us about
you.
About me?
Yeah, and what you're studying. And
yeah, definitely. I'm on this mission, without question, on raising voices that are not heard within Wellington City Council, and civil engagement is top priority for me in regard to having Wellington City is being rebuilt, and there's a lot of key voices being missed from the table. And where my parents are not reading this report, I am, and I will raise those concerns. And hopefully, I'll see you guys at one of these tables sooner than later.
Ngā mihi nui Wakina. Thank you so much for your service. We look forward to seeing you more frequently.
Thank you.
Yeah, and if you are able to share those kupu, the words, that would be awesome.
Kia ora. Thank you for your time, and again, acknowledgement to the officers that completed this plan.
Thank you. Ngā mihi nui Stephen Turnock from DCM. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Kia ora katoa. Ko Stephen Tunot toko ingoa. I'm the mana hautu, the director at Downtown Community Ministry, and real pleasure to be able to get this opportunity to speak with you, and also a pleasure and an opportunity to speak alongside everyone who's come before me. But I guess first of all, I want to stand here in support of the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan as from DCM. As an organisation, we know what works, and that is early intervention, strong community partnerships, and a focus on both safety and support. However, despite our efforts, demand is rising, the gaps remain, and the complexities are getting more complex. This plan represents a crucial opportunity to take a coordinated citywide approach that ensures Wellington is a city where everyone, especially our most vulnerable, feel safe, supported and valued. This will only be possible if we commit to work together. Why this plan matters. Safety and well-being are fundamental human rights. A truly safe city is not just one where people feel protected from crime. It's one where people feel connected, valued and supported. However, not all Wellingtonians experience safety in the same way. Those people sleeping rough or living in unstable housing are more likely to be victims of violence, exploitation, and discrimination. Many face barriers to accessing support, including stigma and systemic challenges. Wellington's current approach isn't working. The demand for housing, mental health, services, addiction services and community support continues to grow. While agencies such as DCM operate with limited resources. And unlike my colleague Murray, I am seeking support and funding to be able to do what we do very well. And I hope to see that come from this Safer City plan. For us, the plan is not about reinventing the wheel. It's about scaling what works and building on a sustainable, coordinated response. At DCM, we see firsthand what helps people transition from crisis to stability. We already contribute to many of the goals outlined in the plan. However, despite our best efforts, current services are stretched thin, under-resourced, and the ability to meet the growing complexities is getting harder. Without a strategic citywide investment, we will continue to address symptoms rather than solutions. Our outreach team is on the ground daily, connecting with rough sleepers, with housing, mental health services throughout Wellington. However, I can categorically say that the demand is outgrowing our capacity to meet that. Many who need help have fallen through the cracks, and we do believe that this plan can ensure that our efforts and we support people in a responsive and coordinated manner. Community partnerships, expanding safe spaces. Currently, we facilitate a number of neighbourhood barbecues. We facilitate chess tournaments in Te Aroha Park. We are engagement in community centres throughout Wellington to create trusting relationships and inclusion. These initiatives strengthen safety and community cohesion, but they are not reaching all the people who need them, and we are not fully resourced to continue to provide such measures. The City Safety and Wellbeing Plan, we believe, will support that and our efforts to grow into a citywide approach, making public spaces safer for everyone. We believe this plan balances safety and support. Direct communication from our outreach team to notifiers of people rough sleeping ensures that concerns are followed up on, giving reassurance to those who care about our most vulnerable. We participate in multidisciplinary team meetings alongside Te Kākano, Wellington City Council, to ensure multi-agency collaboration for those with complex needs. However, a lack of long-term investment means that interventions remain reactive rather than proactive. We believe that this plan will help change that. Addressing housing challenges, turning data into solutions. I stand here comfortable to say that DCM is one of the leading data solution to this situation, and we are leading in terms of the provision of that data. But I think it's important to raise awareness to position ourselves in that space. We've had to invest in excess of $200,000 to build that capability, which the sector is now benefiting from. Through that, right now DCM supports approximately 1,000 people per year who are either vulnerable in terms of risk of losing their home or are homeless. We are learning and growing our data capability to have a deep understanding on the causes of homelessness and the best solutions to respond to that. What we do know, standing here today, rough sleeping is increasing. Rough sleepers increasingly seek stable housing, not emergency or transitional housing. They are seeking long-term sustainable housing. Yet access remains limited, and in fact access to emergency housing is increasingly limited. Many are facing barriers to getting the help that they need. We just don't want to turn, we don't just want to document these challenges, we want to solve them. This plan will allow us to turn data into coordinated solutions that fill critical housing gaps. We don't believe that this plan is about duplicating work. It's about ensuring that successful frontline efforts are properly resourced and supported. If implemented, we believe that this plan will lead to safer public spaces, reducing crime, building a stronger sense of security, better housing and support pathways, fewer people sleeping rough, improving community wellbeing, less pressure on emergency services, preventing crisis before they escalate, saving taxpayer money. Economic benefits: a safer city attracts investment, tourism, and boosts local businesses. Stronger social cohesion: a city where everyone belongs and is treated with dignity. However, if we do not act, we believe that we will continue to see a rise in homelessness and visible distress. More people sleeping rough, creating public concern. Higher crime and antisocial behaviour, issues escalating due to the lack of support. Increased pressure on emergency services. First responders, such as our police force, our ambulance service, dealing with preventable crises. Economic and social costs. Unsafe public spaces drive businesses away and lower community confidence. And finally, further marginalisation of the vulnerable, risking the criminalisation of poverty rather than solving it. Therefore, from our perspective, this plan not only is just about reducing crime and about reducing the perception of a problem. This plan is about building a Wellington where everyone, housed or unhoused, feels safe, included and supported. We have a choice. We can commit to proactive evidence-based strategy that balances safety with compassion, ensuring better outcomes for everyone. Or we can do nothing and watch as our challenges become harder to manage, more costly and more harmful for us all. To us, this is not just about implementing a plan, it's about standing up for the values we hold as a city. And as an organisation, we are motivated and excited to be a partner in this plan. So yeah, ngā mihi nui, thank you for your time. Any questions?
Ngā mihi nui, Stephen. We have time for one pārtai, Councillor Free.
Yeah, partnership's obviously such a crucial part of this plan. Are you confident this plan will improve our ability to work, say, with government agencies? And you talked about funding. Obviously, we need much more than council can provide. So the question is, will this plan improve things for getting access to everything that's needed?
I think this plan gives the opportunity to who chooses to step into a space of creating better outcomes for the city. I think it will give motivation and encouragement to have conversations for those people who may not be stepping into that space. As long as there's not a plan, I believe it gives people the opportunity to not necessarily step to where they need to be.
So the answer is it's a part of the it's part of it.
The solution, yes.
Thank you.
Kia ora. That's all the time we have for Pātai, but I think maybe a few of us might be hanging around over morning tea as well. Thank you, Stephen. No mai, haere mai, Dylan Black from Pōneke Party Guardians. Kia ora, feel free to sit at the table if you feel more comfortable or can stay at the podium.
Kia ora, thank you, I'll stand. My name is Maudlin Black. I'm one of the co-organizers of Pōneke Party Guardians, a group which provides care teams for event spaces in Wellington. I am also the chairperson of Harm Reduction Coalition Aotearoa, and we'll be passing on some of their concerns and suggestions, though I am primarily here in my role as a PPG officer. So first, I would like to thank the council for this thorough safety plan and also for the opportunity to speak. I will try to keep my submission brief for time and speak to several specific points in the plan, although the plan in general, I do want to say, is very thorough, very well thought out, and addresses safety and well-being on a number of different levels. I first want to speak to 3.1 under the action plan for implementing care officers. Yes, which says that the care officer team will be in partnership with the hospitality sector and is designed to address concerns related to intoxication and vulnerability in key nightlife areas. I would like to strongly encourage the council to establish care officers as non-authority figures. Organizations like Pōneke Party Guardians have it enshrined in our kaupapa that we are peers supporting peers, and this massively increases the effectiveness and accessibility of the service we provide. Many of the people who experience higher rates of sexual violence have also experienced discrimination from authority figures, including police, and the only establishing a reporting service, a disclosure service, where the only option is an authority figure to speak to, would be a barrier to access, would increase in accessibility for these already marginalized populations. Having peers in place, as is the case with PPG, greatly widens our scope and our ability to provide harm reduction and safety measures. I also strongly advocate for standardized training to be implemented between all groups operating in this space. Care officers, venue staff, and security guards would benefit from knowledge that includes competency in working with different cultures, in working with disabled people, and with better understanding of why people take drugs and the root causes of addiction. PPG Kaimahi, for example, received bystander intervention training, overdose response training, sexual violence prevention training, training on how to receive disclosures, and mental health first aid. Our Kaimahi work in pairs, both for safety, it has proven to be safety, and because it ensures that there is an opportunity for whanaungatanga and that we can implement whanaungatanga alongside the training I previously mentioned. This builds trust, strengthens connections, and has been shown to increase safety and effectiveness because of the knowledge that the other party in crisis situations has received similar training and can be relied upon, as well as the simple presence of familiarity between both. I would encourage a holistic wraparound service for this care of Courtney Place that has been suggested, and for care officers to adopt similar priorities for the sake of safety and well-being of the community. There is currently a working group commissioned by the Ministry of Health establishing a set of national standards of care for event spaces and care teams of which I am a member. I see no reason why there should not also be a corresponding set of standards, including standardized training, for those groups operating as different facets of the Courtney Place safety initiatives. I would also like to caution on the emphasis of police inclusion in initial sexual violence reporting. According to police data on crime and victimization, respondents who had experienced sexual violence in the previous 12 months, 94% said that they had not reported it to the police. And I would recommend that the council strongly consider establishing a plan to address this growing and serious violence, sexual violence, in the most accessible and effective way. I understand the council takes discrimination seriously and has done their best to implement a plan that considers this. With this in mind, I will add that the highest rates of sexual violence are endured by marginalized groups. 47% of transgender people have experienced sexual violence. 1 in 2 disabled people have experienced unwanted sexual contact. And higher rates of Maori and Pacific populations compared to the general population do report higher rates of sexual violence. As these groups also face more discrimination and stigma and are more likely to have had negative experiences with police, security, and other authority figures, I suggest that the plan cater to instances of violence that those people face involve officers present as accessible figures in order to disclose to. Sorry. The last thing I would like to speak to very briefly, just on behalf of Harm Reduction Coalition Aotearoa's concerns, is the proposal that I bring to the council, the establishment of overdose prevention centers, also called supervised consumption sites, within their existing plans to address drug and alcohol use and provide more resources to addiction and mental health services. Studies have shown that CSCs, supervised consumption sites, can provide sterile drug consumption equipment disposal methods, drug checking services, which I know the council has already included in their plan to address this in the city. They may also include counseling on safe drug use, infectious disease testing, and referrals to healthcare, substance use disorder treatment, and other social services. Studies have shown that SCSs can effectively promote safety among people who use drugs without encouraging drug use or drug distribution within surrounding communities. Another study found that SCSs also have positive impact for communities in which they are implemented by connecting people who use drugs with health and social services and reducing public order and street safety concerns. Additional reviews have found no evidence of adverse events within the sites or in the wider community due to the presence of these supervised consumption sites. They reduce overdose mortality and morbidity while having no negative impact on public safety. This aligns with the council's commitments to fostering inclusive, accessible, livable, and health-promoting city spaces, and work well to counter the stigmatization and discrimination risked by interacting with unhoused people who use drugs solely through criminal justice measures. This would help build resilience, as SCSs have reported much higher rates of service users meeting recovery goals, managing substance use in a more healthy way, obtaining housing, and being able to enter employment. This is in the interest of the City Council. The reason that supervised consumption sites report such higher rates of service users meeting their recovery goals and reaching a point where they can access housing or employment, as opposed to services like needle exchanges, for example, has already been mentioned in this meeting. It is because supervised consumption sites provide the ability to connect, to build relationship, rapport, for the staff there to get to know the service users and then to be better able to connect them with other social services. Supervised consumption sites in this way, meet the council, align with the council's goals. It is also worth noting the disparity here in that the inclusion, displacement, stigmatization, and criminalization of one group of people who pose no statistical safety risk is presented as preferable for the goal of increasing the social well-being and reducing perceptions of feeling unsafe for another group. The Council's goal of catering to one group is that is already equipped with resilience, access to city spaces, and higher levels of social well-being is concerning. Why should a vulnerable population be displaced and their substance use criminalized so that another, less vulnerable population be granted freer access to their own supervised consumption sites to indulge in substances that are not stigmatized and criminalized? By this, I mean Courtney Place bars. They are supervised consumption sites. I pose that the Courtney Place bars are in themselves supervised consumption sites where people can legally take the drug of alcohol in a safe, regulated, and monitored environment. I see no reason why unhoused people or people suffering from addiction, people with drug and alcohol issues, should not be offered the same safe, healthy provisions.
Well, Dylan, we're just coming to the very end of your time. If you wanted to make a last comment.
I thank you for your time. Just to summarize, please don't have care officers be authority figures. It increases inaccessibility. And please consider supervised consumption sites and the reduction of police involvement in sexual violence reporting. Thank you.
Ngā mihi nui. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. Kia ora tātou. We are just at the end of public participation. Very shortly, we will go to morning tea. I just wanted to take a little bit of the time because it is, we are to acknowledge the departure of a big council legend here this week. And no, I'm not talking about myself. But we are to recognise the service of Officer Sean Johnson. And, you know, so about 10 years ago this year, I walked into a council building and I think I was probably like sweating all over and really nervous to be interviewed for youth council. And I do believe Sean might have been on that panel, or he might have been at one of the first hui. And in that I made a friend. And yeah, as you can see up on screen, there's a rather cool vintage ad campaign asking and encouraging other Wellingtonians to talk about their favourite place in Wellington, and Sean's was Princess Bay. Safe to say, council's graphic skills have come a bit of a way since then. And yeah, and Sean's kind of been able to keep things running even when Democracy in Action kind of looks a bit like a Parks and Rec scene. But honestly, watching you move through council, bro, it's been really cool to see where our pathways have led up. I remember sitting at the Pacific Advisory Group, and Jocelyn, the chair at the time, would often speak about you like you were a son of hers. You know, your personal relationships are really awesome, and you've helped loads of vulnerable communities be able to engage with council. And yeah, I just have one other pick up there. Sean is serving, you could say. And yeah, just a little nod to Yui Hoa. I tried to find some old vintage memes, but I think we'll just let the images speak for yourself. But yeah, ngā mihi, and thank you heaps for your service. Righto, and with that, we will move to morning tea. Please, if you have any amendments, get them sorted. No mai ki tēnei hui. Welcome back. Righto, so just procedurally, so we've got clarity around the table. We are first going to hear an introduction from James. We are then going to have questions, and then by the end of question time, I'm going to ask if anyone would like any amendments in the substantive, which I understand there's maybe a live one going with Councillor Wineta and Councillor Pannett, that we ideally have the wording by the end of the question time. Righto. No mai James Roberts, Sahai Oga, David Enzo, ki te hori e te korero.
Kia ora koutou, thank you, Chair. It's my pleasure to introduce the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan. In June 2024, Council adopted the 24-34 long-term plan, which noted that Council, working with relevant agencies, would develop a city safety plan, including key measures to reduce crime and improve safety in Wellington with a focus on the central city. This included an increase in social grants funding for initiatives by $500,000 per year. City safety has many elements to it, as the speakers this morning have so eloquently told us. Over the last few months, we've taken a deliberate and considered approach to shaping the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan, and it is one that has been informed by extensive engagement and collaboration, and also consideration of our current and previous approaches to city safety, the good and the things that haven't worked as well. Councillors have been briefed on this work twice, in December 24 and again in February 25. We've also tested and refined this approach through conversations with key stakeholders, community representatives, and members of the Mayor's City Safety Leadership Group, the City Safety Forum, and business advisory groups. As we go forward, our commitment is to strengthen our safety initiatives, build confidence across our communities, and ensure that Wellington remains a place where people feel safe, connected, and supported. This plan is designed to evolve with the city. One of the key things that we've highlighted within this plan is the amount of funding and resources that we have committed to city safety, and the fact that there is probably not a single simple answer or way of addressing these challenges, and that ultimately we are going to need to constantly think, come up with ideas, work with our partners, and reconfigure the plan and the resources that have been put into this effort. But the plan, as I said, is designed to evolve with the city and to deliver real measurable outcomes while maintaining the flexibility needed to respond to the changing urban environment that we've heard about this morning. I want to recognise the key strategic partners we have here with us today, whose collaboration has been instrumental in shaping this plan and the actions within it. So Dean, Sylvester and Miriam Bentley from the police. Murray, as you all well know. Stephen from DCM, thank you Stephen for your speech, and Mike Hinton, the Chief Executive of He Haringa Kura. I'll now hand over to David and Sahai to answer any questions you may have.
Councillor Abdirahman.
So my understanding is in 2021, it's about 5-point-something million, 7.2 million. And then how much of that money been spent until now? And now it's going into 40 million as well. What other things are we spending on top of what I just mentioned on 132, where it says for city safety initiatives, this budget line is comprised of graffiti management, safe city project initiatives, including CCTV, urban liaison officer, and the eyes on the program. So 40 million is a lot of money. I just want to know what else is not included in.
So there's an amount of funding for grants, social grants, that help fund some of the organisations that we're working with as partners. There's quite a lot of funding that goes that path. And there's usually multi-year grants that we use for those funds. The CCTV network and operation, there's the hardware and the software and the maintenance of all of that, plus the people who monitor those devices and coordinate with the people that we then have working out on the streets and working with our partners. So there's quite a lot of staffing costs involved in all of that. And then there is the harm prevention and the other work that David's team is doing as well, and there's a team of folk who work on those initiatives. So the $40 million, if you break that over 10 years, is around about $4 million a year. So it's not actually as much as it may sound like, but it is a considerable amount of money, and there is a lot of stuff that the work that is done with that money, and a lot of different areas that we can actually use that money. So in actual fact, it isn't very much.
A follow-up to that, I agree with you. It's not much, but if we are spending 38 of it on CCTV example, that will change the whole discussion. So we don't have breakdown of how much is going where, or is that part of the next part of the discussion? Because here I don't see, okay, 40 million, I don't want 39 of them to be spent on something that's not going to change substantively on the ground. And how much is going to which project, and we don't have that detail at this stage.
So the plan really does detail a lot of different actions in areas where we are putting investment into. Ultimately, what we're trying to achieve here is understand how all of these elements can work together, and where we need to make adjustments to where we need to put more money. So, for example, I think you've heard from Murray this morning, and from DCM as well, that potentially more or the same amount of funding could be used for some of the work that they're doing. Similarly, with our own internal resources, where we're generating what we would see as results, and that's showing clear evidence that results are coming through, then that's an opportunity for us to potentially put more funding into an area. Where we're seeing less results coming through, that might be an area we can reduce funding. So there's a constant readjustment that needs to be done on where these funds are actually spent, and what the plan tries to do is identify all the different areas that we're trying to cover. There's not actually very much for each area, to be honest, and so to some extent we need to really identify what works and make sure that that's where we're focusing the money and the resources.
One more, Madam Chair. So are you coming back at some stage for funding approval, or does that mean we are just writing this 40 million, that means the rest is operational?
So that funding was already approved in the LTP, and what we're doing really is coming back and saying to you in this plan that these are the areas that we're focusing on, and in essence where we're spending that money and investing those resources.
Part-time Councillor Pennant.
Thank you for your work. You mentioned in the report that around gender-based violence and against rainbow communities. Can you tell me who is perpetrating the violence? Like which gender? Is it women? Is it men? Is it gender diverse people? And who is also responsible for New Zealand having the highest domestic violence statistics in the world?
Look,
Chair, I don't think we're able to answer that question, sorry.
Well, no, but I do want to know why. So my question is, why are we not emphasising who is the perpetrator and then identifying it and then being able to make a clear statement about what needs to do to rectify that situation?
Look, I'll state, because we are at the beginning of the process, I would caution colleagues around leading or loaded questions, because actually the city safety plan needs everyone involved in the solutions, and yeah, I'd just appreciate.
Well, can I just? I'm just asking who is responsible for the violence. I don't think that is an unreasonable question. Yeah. Just who are the perpetrators? Who are the perpetrators?
So,
no, who are they?
Councillor, we don't have that specific information for you.
Okay.
That's not our focus. We are working with partners who understand what's happening on the street really, really well, because they're experiencing and working with it every single day. And the initiatives that we've come up with are based on the best thinking and intelligence from that group of people that we're working with.
So my next question is, because it is around that, I've asked a number of times about consulting with rainbow communities and that has not happened as yet. So I feel there's a gap there. Are you, but there is an intention to do so. I know we've got a meeting at track, but that's after the plan is placed. So what will you do to bring that perspective in?
As James mentioned, Councillor Pennant, this is a plan that will iterate and will evolve over time. So although we haven't engaged with every community we might have liked to in this phase of the plan, in future iterations, as we do more of that engagement, you'll see the actions that are identified reflected in the plan.
And just my last question for now is, given the amount of time and effort and money that we've put into our homelessness work, into Pōneke Promise, my concern is to make sure we get the solutions right, because we haven't managed to fix some of them, and I appreciate we can't fix all of them. But are you confident that all of this investment has actually changed anything fundamentally, given the number of people who are experiencing violence and experiencing homelessness?
I'm confident in the work that's been done to date, and I'm also confident in the way that it's informed this plan and the actions that have been designed within it.
Pātai Councillor Winera.
Kia ora team, sorry about that. In there, it says that the LAP will minimise preloading. It doesn't go into too much detail on how exactly it might achieve this. Could you maybe give some more specifics?
With regards to the LAP, I'd ask Jeff to come up and speak to that.
I think it says that it'll address the issues such as preloading rather than minimise
I see. Sure. I'm just curious how it will do that.
Obviously, one of the issues, there's a lot of things which can be considered within a LAP, including the role and the density and number of off licences. So that's one aspect which we'd certainly explore as we went through that process. So which may have some impact on preload.
Okay, cool, thank you. Sweet, cheers. And my next question is, how can we measure the effectiveness of the group that was formerly known as Hapaiake? Did they have targets, deliverables, anything, any kind of reporting that we can kind of get a feel for how well they did and are doing?
The effectiveness of a group or a team like that is challenging to measure in terms of numbers, right? We have good data around what they were observing and how they responded to the things that they observed, but it's harder to measure things like the impact of visibility and regular engagement and interaction. So the short answer is that we don't have strong data to evidence the effectiveness of the team, but we know that the activities that they were doing are effective in the sense of improving things like perception. And
okay, and then one more before I hop back on the list. Thank you, Chair. Did we achieve the targets of our previous Te Mahana homelessness strategy? Were there targets that could have been achieved? And did we achieve them?
Te Mahana was an extremely aspirational strategy rather than a kind of focused strategy with measurable outcomes.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Calvert.
Mine's quite a simple one. It's community. When you talk about community patrols, and sorry, it just sort of clicked today when through the various speakers. Are you also including the community patrols that are out in the suburbs, that are in liaison with the police, or are these other community patrols?
So we're talking specifically about the Ethnic Patrol, Pacifica Patrol, and the Māori Wardens.
Okay. So what about the community patrols that is known as community patrols, and perhaps the police are here, I know, and they may be able to clarify, but there is community patrols which communities fund, and and it's staffed by volunteers, but they're mainly, I've seen them in the suburbs. So just wondering where they fit into this.
This plan is specifically focused on, or primarily focused on the central city, but we do support and work with the community patrols based in the suburbs, Tawa in particular, but some of the others as well, including including with funding and other support.
Is it possible just to be able to in your plan? I don't mean I won't move an amendment, but is it possible going forward to sort of just clarify where they fit? Just as
From
a bit of
location perspective, or
and just clarifying who they are, because I suppose there's a formal name for them but just and where they fit into this plan if they don't or if they do.
There's probably also space for that when there's a proposal coming to the grants funding meeting, where we look at this support package specifically.
Yeah, but I mean they'd have to know about it, you see, and I don't know whether they were being fully aware because I hadn't really clicked on that aspect. So I'm just wondering whether you could, in your plan, if there's a chance for minor editorial things, that perhaps it could be looked at.
Yeah.
No further patai. Councillor Free.
Thank you. I just noticed with some interest a point 56 in the paper. So it just says that officers will have warranted authority to enforce bylaws, particularly in areas such as managing street activity and reducing antisocial behaviour. I kind of wondered actually how much training they would have and how that's actually envisaged to take place in a way that's safe for our staff.
100%. We are going to be putting together a quite intensive and significant training package for about 3 weeks actually, where they take with the urban liaison officers will be undergoing quite specific training in this space with regards to the warranted authority, de-escalation training, conflict and de-escalation training, I should say, and package that up alongside establishing really good relationships with our partners so that they walk alongside the police, they walk alongside DCM and the Wellington City Mission and others. So they won't, it's going to be absolutely a safe space for them to learn and to practice and to do their job.
Just to follow up on that, what sort of warranted authority might they have?
There are warranted officers in a few different parts of the council, but as it relates specifically to this plan, the warranted officers, which we have now and will have in the urban liaison team, have the ability to help to move somebody's things if, for example, someone has set up a camp in the street or in a public space, and they will have the warranted authority to require them to move on.
Okay, move their possessions.
Things.
Yeah, right. Okay. And is that the main power that they're going to have?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chung. Councillor Chung, did you have a question?
There was also something I was looking at, that warranted authority. Now, with the recent discussion on citizens' arrest laws changing, how would that actually affect the people that we have going out there? Like, would they would we train them to actually say that you now have this ability to do this? It's not to replace the police, but would that give them more confidence to do that?
Once that.
So I will get Karen to answer that if necessary.
Yeah. Kia ora, councillors. So what I would say is that is a proposal that has been suggested. It's not actually a law yet, so we don't make sort of decisions or advice based on things that aren't yet law. We don't know what's going to happen with that.
Second question is regarding these blue light sites there. Now, we talk about putting them into prominent positions. Now, have we actually looked at the data of where crime is actually committed, like where assaults happen?
Yes.
And are we going to be locating them in those areas?
It's around high footfall, and also looking at that in light of any of the incidents and the trends that we've seen through CCTV observations and data. And what we're seeing right now is that the 3 locations that we've put in the plan are what we want to test in terms of what we might see and how that might make an impact. It's a pilot, so we're looking at exactly that, testing it to see its use, to see if it will make any impact or change. Will it lift visibility, or will it just be used for a fun play thing in the middle of the night? And so we want to learn from that, and once we have some more insight, that's where we want to make some further recommendations.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Councillor McNulty.
Just for the benefit of those around the table, can you list all the organisations that have inputted into the city safety strategy?
It's an Excel spreadsheet, and would I be able to send you something?
Yes, or maybe you could just note some highlights of some more.
So obviously our key strategic partners who you heard from today, and now I'm drawing a blank, but we've through the City Safety Forum, we had a number of other community representatives such as Inner City Wellington, Mount Vic Residents Association. We've had the community patrols across both all Pacifica ethnic and the Māori wardens we continue to meet with as well. The Mayor's Leadership Group included Kāinga Ora, Ministry of Health, MSD, anyone else that I'm missing?
VIUSA
yes,
have been heavily involved. Respect Ed have met with us as well. Did we say Inner City Wellington?
Yeah.
It's a long list.
No, just if anyone may have missed the chance to read their papers, I think it's helpful to share that context. Thank you.
Councillor Pennant.
Thanks. Jeff, a question for you, just around the LAP. Is the strong evidence that the location of alcohol outlets does reduce harm in communities?
I'd have to confirm that. Yes, then that is the... one specifically would look at that as we go through this process for Wellington, but that is certainly the approach that others have taken. So if you look at particularly in where we're dealing with our vulnerable communities, people have taken that approach to say we actually want to look at the density and number and location of those, so that even at the top level, that the access to alcohol and therefore consequence of harm is managed or at least reduced. So people have, that is the approach that others have taken. We will certainly look at that and how that applies to our communities.
Is there any evidence, though, as a result of those actions that it works?
I probably can't answer that one right now off the top of my...
Okay. But
we can come back to.
Yeah, okay, that would be helpful, thanks. And Sahai and David, look, it's been 5 years since we had a homelessness strategy. There was in fact, a number of attempts to make sure that there was one, because homelessness is not just about homes and social services. So given the council did make that commitment, I'm just still struggling a bit with understanding how what is outlined here will address things like causes, outcomes, things to do, and a sense of belonging, because it's not just about safety. And I think I am concerned that we won't have one.
So this plan is intended to move beyond a strategy and discussion to be an action-oriented plan with practical solutions that respond to the realities that we manage daily within the team. The strategy, when I think about the strategy and how it informs the actions that are in this plan, as I said before, I'm confident that we are acknowledging what Te Mahana did in that space, and we're taking it further. So this is more than just research. This is now action on the ground.
Councillor Free.
Thank you. So I've got a couple of questions. One's simple. So how many people is it actually sort of envisaged approximately to be on the city safety team and the other team, the urban liaison team? Obviously, you're probably working this through, but I just wondered if you've got an idea.
There are lots of people across the organisation working on city safety and things related to city safety. In the urban liaison team, currently we're recruiting for 5 roles, and in the wider city safety team, including the harm prevention team, is around 6 people in addition to those 5.
Yeah, okay. I'm concerned about partnership only because I know that it's been, in my view, a little bit of a weak link on how sometimes one of the city councils engaged in the past. Is there any plan? How are you planning to monitor the success of this, given that it's so based on an ecosystem of things that happen in the city? How are you planning to monitor, and is there any specific ability to monitor the interaction, like the successful passing of an issue to another agency to resolve? How are we going to keep track of the actual success of this plan?
There's going to be many different ways that we're measuring success, and that's not just through counting or data.
No.
And you're right, it is around relationships. And to me, it's around following up so that nothing gets left unturned, if you will, so that when we are working through the actions of Pillar 2, for example, we not only understand what's happening on the ground, but we are actively following up and making progress with every single case. We're actively constantly communicating and coordinating with our partners so that everybody around the table that we talk to is absolutely up to date with where things are at, what our assessment is of the situation, and how we believe a good way forward is. And that way forward is shared across the board, not only internally as an organisation, but importantly with our stakeholders.
I mean, would it be fair to say that we're trying to leverage everybody's mahi in this?
Yes.
It can't just be our contribution. It's got to be an exercise to leverage.
It has to be an integrated approach across all the sector and the city.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wineta.
Kia ora again. How often are the provisions of the public places bylaw, how are they most often used on the street? How does that law manifest on the street, if you will?
So it is used infrequently, extremely infrequently, and only following a sustained period of engagement with an individual and support to access, services and support from our partners. I think, this year we've maybe used it 3 times, and it is when someone has set up an encampment in the street that is impacting on the public's ability to move, freely and safely down the footpath, and we then work with the person and require them to move their things off the public space.
Thank you. My next question is, are the various community patrol positions paid?
Our urban liaison team is paid. The Māori wardens, Pacifica patrollers, and the ethnic patrollers are volunteers.
Okay.
And that's a kind of core part of their service.
Okay. How will, the paper mentions real-time data on homelessness that will be collected. How are we collecting this real-time data?
We do that through various ways. Our harm prevention team is really connected with all the different agencies that work with the different cases and the different people that we work with on the street. And that real-time data is not only in the kind of the database that we hold with the information that we hold, but the information that we can get from the different agencies that we work with.
Including members of the public who alert us to people who might be experiencing homelessness.
Okay, so that's one way. I'm just trying to maybe get some examples of ways that we actually collect this data.
Yeah. Our CCTV team actively monitor and record what they see. The urban liaison team, as they're heading out and about, they record that as they engage with people. We do formally a monthly count of rough sleepers very early in the morning, where we physically, alongside DCM, walk through a route in the CBD and record people who might be or who are rough sleeping.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, I was just wondering, in the construction of this plan, how sort of important was it to distinguish what things were within our control versus within our influence, and sort of how you've weighted the investment we're going to make into each of those aspects?
So there is a section in the plan around what we can control and what we can influence, and that is really to call out where we see and what our experience is in, and obviously what we need to acknowledge in terms of those limitations. Sorry, the second part of your question was how we reflected the resourcing, or?
Yeah, just kind of sort of how do we weigh up the time or resource that we invest into, I guess, those two aspects of the plan?
How do we?
I think it's fair to say that our resourcing is predominantly focused on the things that we can control, where we can have the greatest impact. But there continues to be significant work, particularly around advocacy for solutions in the areas where we have influence rather than control.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
It's probably also fair to say that political influences can make a significant difference as well, and that's obviously beyond what we are able to achieve as officers. So we really are also hoping that Council and the Mayor's office will exert as much political influence as possible, particularly on central government, to assist in areas where we need to influence action.
I absolutely. Pauiwi Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve Turnock talked to a new software that they've invested in to collect and measure data regarding homelessness. Do we work with them and use their data and information?
Yes.
Very closely.
Yeah, good, because that's good. They paid for the investment and we use their information.
Yeah.
That's a partnership.
Councillor Winera.
Okay, last two, promise. Welly Wi-Fi, is that, I mean, I think anecdotally people view that as a fairly key safety measure. Is that in a fairly good shape, and does it have any place in this plan?
It's an excellent shape, Councillor.
In terms of its place in the plan, we know that when we've been out with Take 10, that people rely on, that service as well to connect and communicate and download.
Call an Uber.
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm thinking. So okay, great. And then finally, this is just a bit of a bugbear of mine, but I'm only bringing it up because I asked it at the briefing when we had it. I'm a bit concerned about sort of feeling that we need to create cute corporate names for things that already have names. In particular, safety spots. In the paper, it mentions that in the UK and Australia, they just call them like emergency phones or call points. Can we just do that?
Yeah, I mean, safety spots is not a name that we've absolutely landed on. It's the concept, really. And to be honest, I'm kind of really keen on safety point. Only because from a comms perspective, it kind of suggests that this is a safe point of calling, and the language around instructions of how to use it should give guidance to people who want to use it and what they can expect from using it.
Is it just a telephone with some lighting?
It's an intercom, lighting, and CCTV camera.
Okay, thanks. That's all.
Most of my questions already asked, but my last one would be, homeless people are from different background, and I wonder the social and the cultural understanding of those who are giving those services, and if there is any support from council through those funding to some of the organizations that are doing great job to have experts in those areas, if my question is right.
So the
example, you have people from different ethnic background or religious minority, and DCM and City Mission, they are doing great job. They support everyone. When you go there, what kind of knowledge for other people's space would be? Is there any support for those agencies so they can support those communities as well?
It's more a question, Councillor, for the agencies to respond to directly. But one of the things I can say is that I know that it's important that we have it and we work with a range of services so that the most appropriate service is available to the person who needs it. And I know that all of those services are very mindful of exactly what you have outlined and are working, and do work very closely and carefully to try and provide the best service to the people who need it.
I believe. All right, Councillor Pennant.
So hi, thank you for making some changes around homelessness and city safety, but there are still 3 paragraphs that I'm concerned about, 59, 62 and 64. So are you saying, say, at paragraph 59 that that homelessness influences the public sense of safety? Why? Because people are worried that homeless people will attack them, or I'm just trying to unpick what that means.
I mean, so it says homelessness is not only a social issue, but one that also influences the public sense of safety and community well-being.
So why does that influence the public sense of safety and well-being when they're not the ones who are homeless? I'm just trying to understand what that means.
The public tell us that homelessness impacts on their perception of safety in the CBD. The RMS has homelessness and rough sleeping as one of the top reasons why people feel unsafe. It's not a perception that we necessarily agree with, and we've attempted to challenge throughout the plan people's perception of feeling unsafe versus their feeling of discomfort. And the actions that we've outlined in the plan attempt to further respond to that.
So I think that's helpful. Thank you for making that distinction. I really appreciate that. I guess my concern is, do you still think having those paragraphs worded like that does allow people to feel that homeless people are unsafe?
I think there's other paragraphs within the plan that also emphasise the fact that being homeless is not a crime, and that is not a safety, that is not related to being unsafe for a person passing by.
Kia ora mai tātou. We have no further pātai. So yes, thank you both David and Zahai for joining us. Really appreciate that. Righto, just to remind us all procedurally, we will move the paper before it is seconded. We will take questions on the paper. Up in front of you is the latest version of what we have in terms of the amended substantive. Did we...
Just a process question. I did ask you before the meeting for an adjournment, just to sort amendments, because I did circulate these on Tuesday to officers. Can we just have that now, or do you want the paper to be moved and then we take the adjournment?
Let's take 5. Make sure we've got the right wording in front of people, and then that also gives our colleagues time to read through the amended substantive. we are. The amendments, a printout of the amendments are coming. What you can see in front of you on our screen is what is in the amended substantive. Some of the amendments are going to be moved separately to the substantive. I believe Councillor Pannett's one and Councillor Wineta's one. So just to address that, some of the debate around other issues are no longer in the substantive. Righto. I will be fairly brief because I do believe we've had heaps of time to discuss this. I've had so many useful conversations with all of you actually about our own lived experiences of safety, our relationships that we have with businesses in the city, the fantastic value of many of our partners. And I really do want to mihi to the people that came in and spoke to us this morning for not only sharing their lived experiences with it, but also being a part of the plan and the solution. Since 2016, and I do remember when that strategy came out, the Ending Homelessness one, I was incredibly excited. And I remember that was a joined up project, and I remember the mayor at the time standing side by side with Mana Whenua and the likes of City Mission and DCM. And Wellington's fabric has changed massive amounts since 2016. We have whakamaru, we have te pāpori, we have fantastic new community initiatives that have popped up. We have drug checking, we have harm reduction. Our, I guess, the conversation on safety has really transformed, and also I am really proud as a city about the way that we talk about our members of the community who are more vulnerable, because I think we are more visible than ever in standing with our vulnerable communities, and that is absolutely something we need to remain committed to. This is a plan about a city that has a really clear objective where everyone, regardless of their housing status, feels seen, supported and safe. It's about allocating more money, more resources, and we need a safety plan that centres the most vulnerable. I am a really strong supporter of nothing about us without us. And the kōrero of Maudlin and Wakina, and I'm also very conscious of the students' associations, particularly the African Students Association, the community that's mobilised around Luke Smith, the Rainbow community, the members of our trans and takatapui community who have been affected, but I've also seen on the other side of that 40,000 people march in a hikoi, and I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of Wellingtonians organise and get together in Civic Square to support our trans community when they've been under threat. So I have absolutely every bit of confidence in this plan and that our community will get behind it. I guess the last part of it, and I can always get in as a right of reply, but I wanted to really thank the Mayor's leadership on this kaupapa, and Councillor Rogers and Councillor Pannett and many people who have put their love and attention, and MP Tamitha Paul for her legacy here, because honestly, when I watch the Mayor talk about safety and nightlife, her whole face just lights up. And you can really tell that this is something that safety has really benefited from, is that political leadership, and I want to acknowledge that there. Yeah, I will leave that there into debate, but I just wanted to draw your attention on quite a few things. I tried to take care of as many considerations as possible, and shout out to Tony Randall, who's not here at the moment, but just around emphasising the value of getting Ministry of Health on board. Kia ora. Before we move to a seconder, I will take questions if there are, and I'm just gonna limit it to the amended substantive, because we've Councillor McNulty.
It's mainly just looking at things like work. That 7's commissioning. I'm just interested in official advice around why this might not have been pushed for in the first place, in the professional opinion of officers, and whether they see this as just a general view on the helpfulness of these types of amendments.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, we see the I think the point in the amendment as already being implicit throughout the plan, and the creation of an additional work program will probably take away from the delivery of the plan itself. The biggest impact is to deliver the plan really as it stands. That will have, in our opinion, have the most positive impact, which includes across the communities mentioned there.
So just to clarify, the additions in number 7, you see them as potentially having some resource clash with being able to implement the rest of the plan as detailed?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
I'll ask a question about something I drafted in the first place. As I understood it when I spoke to officers, that that as the plan progressed, that they would be looking at actions to support some of these groups. So it was really part of that next stage of work. Can you confirm that there is more work to be done as indicated in the paper? And I particularly ask about rainbow communities because that has not been covered off.
It's not on. So yeah, I can speak to that. Thank you. Yes, so as we've spoken about, that work will be around testing our ideas, testing what we're seeing from the plan and the delivery of that with the various communities through the various forums and advisory groups.
Councillor Chung.
I guess I'm a data-driven person and I like to see what results come out of things. And so what I'm seeing in the city, when I look at
Councillor Chung.
Sorry.
Sorry, just to clarify, we're just in the question section for the words in red in front of you, not in debate.
Okay, so when I look at these amendments, I see that you're specifying or itemising different special groups, but are they actually all the groups? Like when people say that they're not comfortable or they don't feel safe in the city, who are those people? Who are they from these groups, or are they from a lot of other different groups? Are they in groups that we don't even know about? I want to make everyone feel safe in the city, not just a few groups that we think are the most vulnerable, because that most vulnerable is very, very overused, I think.
Because there is a question to the mover, I might leave the answer for that in debate. Unless you wanted to. If you feel like it.
There's many groups. I think our speakers this morning have all mentioned that there are many groups of folk who are affected. But probably the biggest impact is to Māori at the moment, and so that's where our plan is focused.
Councillor Matthews.
I'm just wondering if the intent of this Amendment 7 in the bullet points, and I guess this is a question of officers, because as a councillor on an advisory group, I don't believe the city safety plan has gone or been debated at the advisory group I'm on. And I know it doesn't incorporate women and girls specifically, but girls incorporated through the youth advisory group. Could we not just have a step where actually the city safety plan and ongoing work is discussed and incorporate the feedback of the advisory groups?
It will be. Yeah, we're going to be doing quite a roadshow of all the advisory groups in the coming months and weeks.
I guess my suggestion would be potentially to the mover of the amended substantive, if that would be a better way of describing the work rather than listing these groups and a separate work program when we have an existing function.
I'm really trying to stop us from jumping into debate. But no, good suggestion. Yeah.
So thank you, Councillor Matthews. So hi, the advisory groups were supposed to be a driving force, but presumably you'd be able to ask other stakeholder groups for their views. So Respect Edge.
Yes, they're all part of the City Safety Forum currently.
So they would be. They will be, and they are talking about this anyway.
They have. Yes, they've already been engaged. Yeah.
So if the actual intent or the outcome is to engage with these communities that already met, would you like to change the wording of this to reflect that? Righto, let's take 5. Thank you everyone for your patience. Tato, see the updated wording in front of you on screen. He pātaio, any further questions on the amended substantive? I see none. With that, we will move on to debate. Mā wai I tautoko, I believe I have a seconder, Mea Whānau. On to debate, Councillor Wenera.
On screen. Kia ora, everybody. I would like to raise this amendment, and Councillor Abdurrahman will second. So we all hate the last minute amendment bash. Here we are. I also hate it. And here I wasn't going to raise anything. I came here, I was disciplined, I was locked in, and then I heard a beautiful submission, a beautiful piece of public participation from the young gentleman who was representing the African Community Council. As a result of that, and after hearing his very reasonable asks on behalf of his community and responding to events that have transpired in our city regarding city safety over the last 12 months, we put our heads together, and Councillor Abdurrahman and Panit and I put together some words that would hopefully fulfill their asks of us as a council. So that is the purpose of this amendment, is to fulfill the asks in that piece of public participation. I'll just speak briefly to the content of the amendment. So the first one is establishing some small compensation for the couple hours a fortnight that is done by people who take part in patrolling their community with some high-vis. As mentioned in the report, this is designed to reduce the incidence of petty crime and antisocial behaviour, and to improve perceptions of safety. And I feel personally that it's only fair that we give these people some small amount of compensation for the time that they give to their city on our behalf. Note, I'm not mandating the way in which that is done. Could go through my committee, or it could be done in another manner. I will leave that to our staff. The middle two are pretty basic measures to build on work already underway in the anti-racism and capability building space, and also to publish and make public our data that we collect, as we heard from question time, on racially motivated attacks and also gendered harassment, in order to get a bit of a more targeted approach to solving these social ills. And then finally, this I think is already in the spirit of the plan, but I thought it bared making explicit, and that is to include mana whenua, rainbow and ethnic community reps in decision making as we go through this process. And as this plan grows, it's a living document, as was mentioned by our staff, and turns into something greater that will hopefully be all things to all people, as Councillor Panit would say. That is the purpose of this amendment. It is simply to fulfill the wishes of a very substantial part of our community who has endured some pain over the last 12 months, and I think it is only fair that we listen to them and that we raise this at this level. I think this is the appropriate place to do it, and I'm very grateful that we have such eloquent and switched-on young people who take the time to attend our very riveting and exciting meetings today. So that is the purpose, and I'm happy to answer any questions in my right of reply. Kia ora.
Righto. We have on the list for questions for officers, Councillor Matthews.
So my questions relate to 5.5, and the first one would be in terms of paid community patrol positions. Have the community patrols requested to be paid? Has that been part of the conversation?
Conversation's been around the investment package that we have worked with them on, and so that's a financial contribution to the operations, training, facilitation of training and provision of training that's standardised across not only the patrols but also through our urban liaison officers and other volunteer programs that might be rolling, including the possible establishment of the care teams, and then part of that package as well as the space of the safety hub that they will use to coordinate their the patrols and any other safety initiatives that are going to be coordinated through the city safety plan.
And my second question is there is it possible to pay community patrol members as part of existing budgets? I'm guessing not. And if that was to occur, we'd be removing funding from other aspects of the plan.
So, Councillor, our recommendation would be to do that via grants.
Okay. And so my third point is again a question of the mover, whether he would consider amending, I may not be here to vote because I have to go on other council business, but to investigate whether community patrol positions should be paid and the mechanism to do that, because I do think this possibly has quite significant implications to organisations that actually are volunteer-based in their whole establishment and purpose, and whether they want to have the complications of people becoming employees. Sorry, Chair.
While Steph whips that one up, we will go to Councillor Randall.
Yes, looking at this amendment, and it's admittedly last minute, I just want to ask officers on each of the 4 elements of the amendment, do they support the amendment, and if not, why not?
Their advice, ask them.
What's their advice on each of the 4 amendment, each of those 4 elements about?
I can probably I'll try and summarise that for you, Councillor. So on the first one, I think some of the points just made by Councillor Matthews are worth considering before coming to any conclusions on whether to make those payments. The mechanism, if that was decided that was a sensible thing to do, the mechanism would best be grants, I suspect. On the second one, I think that we have an amount of resource that works on supporting sexual violence prevention training with hospitality and various other partners around town. Obviously, if we add an element to that's more work to do. But I think that I'm getting the indication from staff that that's quite achievable. The third one would really require us to determine how we collect that data, how we would capture and collect that data. And the fourth one's probably up to the Mayor.
That might be one for debate. Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Rogers.
Yeah, I guess leads directly into my question around 5.8. And there was it might be useful if you could explain the different groups that we have around the city safety plan from the operational to strategic perspective, and kind of describe maybe where some of those people already are or where they could be included.
Mana whenua are already included and have been invited and have already participated in the leadership group. So the City Safety Forum also represents or has members who are representative of the others listed in that space.
We have quite a few people on the question list. Councillor Free.
So my immediate thought when we talked about paying community patrols is, would we incur health and safety risks that we wouldn't necessarily have? They weren't our employees.
I can't speak to the merits or otherwise of it. The mechanism to do it would be to provide a grant to the organisation.
And so that keeps us at arm's length.
Exactly, yeah.
But the wording actually says pay them, which kind of, paid it, have you? Okay. I'd be a bit concerned. Do you see this adding a lot of extra expense into the program?
Are you referring to the 5.5?
Amendments? Yeah, all of them really.
Well, as I said, 5.7, we'd have to think about how we would be able to actually get that. So wouldn't be able to say that right now, how much additional impact that would have on the program. I think 5.6 is feasible. We've answered 5.8, and yeah.
Would it be a fair comment that if you don't collect data adequately and thoroughly, that it's probably not very useful?
In the general sense of the question?
I'm talking about 5.7.
Sorry, Councillor,
My question was really, if you don't actually have the resources to do a proper job of collecting the data and you're confident about what you're collecting, could you actually do more harm than good?
In the general case, yes, you're correct. I think part of the challenge here would be this data would be coming from multiple parties. It wouldn't just be, we would need to consult with our partners to see whether or not this kind of data is available and how it might be, and if not, how it might be captured and what would be the process to provide some quality assurance of that data as well.
So if we were to require you to do this, it would put you in a potentially quite difficult position.
We would have to go and investigate whether it's possible, and then we'd have to report back to you on that.
That's 3. Councillor Calvert.
Yeah, it just comes back to a question I asked about who were the community control. It says patrol. So who were the community patrol? Because it does seem that community patrols out in the suburbs haven't been factored in. So this would then, are officers assuming it includes those, or is it just a particular group of community patrols?
Yeah, I would say the scope of the plan in front of us today is just focused on the centre of the city. So I would take this as just community patrols in the CBD, as outlined in the kind of scope of the plan.
Okay. Is it possible to actually, officers to change the plan to central city, safety and wellbeing? Because when I see city, I just assume it's right across the city.
It's primarily, the focus at the moment is primarily in the central city, but it's not exclusively central city.
Okay. So then that should purely, if that's the case, if we talk about community patrols, we should be including the community patrols done in the suburbs.
I think the challenge with the way that this is currently written is that it's open for interpretation as to exactly what the scope of it is, and without understanding the scope, I can't really tell you what the workload is to actually address it.
Okay, thank you.
Pauiwi Kelly.
Okay, I've kind of forgotten the question, but it was more along the lines of that last submitter. I'm referring to asking for paid, what are they called? Yeah, community patrols. That last submitter, remember she said something about not wanting to, if we were going to support anything or fund anything, that it be given to, I forget what she said the names were, but it was essentially saying those that were skilled, qualified, and what they were doing. So I'm thinking, do we really need to do this? Are we putting another level on by asking for these people? Are they already there, or what's happening?
That might be something for debate for the mover to respond to.
Okay.
Yeah.
When he talks.
Yeah. Good partai though.
Okay.
Councillor Chung.
Okay, regarding 5.5, my query is that perhaps a bit more clarification. When I think of community patrols, I think of people in the suburbs driving around in cars. So when we're referring to that in the CBD, are these community patrol people driving around in cars like they do in the suburbs, or are they walking around? And so are they subject to more or different confrontational issues or things that people in cars in the suburbs would be?
I think they are primarily walking, and I think it is a completely different context at times in the central city compared to the suburbs, Councillor.
Great, thanks. Okay, and so 5.6 and 5.7 I'm comfortable with. 5.8, I'm still... I tend to think that when you actually itemise particular groups, and even though here it says to include these different groups, what you're doing, perhaps...
No, Ray, sorry, not debate, it's just a questions, please.
Okay, so unconsciously, is there a chance that you'll be excluding people who aren't in these groups?
Which groups are you referring to, Ray? Oh, mana whenua rainbow ethnic community. I mean, not to paraphrase, or I don't want to misrepresent, but I believe Sahai said it definitely does already include mana whenua and groups that can speak to the experiences of rainbow and ethnic community.
Well, okay, I would be more comfortable if it just had everyone, rather than highlight some
everyone.
groups.
Yeah. No, but look,
I think the nature of any representative group is made up of a few people who have to represent other people, and I think the mayor represents the city, so by definition covers everybody.
Well, in that case, can we just drop off those highlighting those groups then, if it covers everyone?
Look, that might be a strong suggestion that you could put to the mover and seconder for them to respond to.
Okay.
Not now, but in debate. Councillor Weneta. Councillor Pannett.
Hi, sorry, I understood there were no rainbow representatives on the mayoral leadership group. Can you just let me know who they are?
No, they're not on the mayoral leadership groups. Through the City Safety Forum, one of the submitters that came today is on the City Safety Forum, represents those groups as well.
Okay, so there's just one representative?
From the Rainbow Group? Well, yes, that we know of, but as you know, we're going to be going to the track and the Rainbow Advisory Groups for further testing and collaboration.
Okay, but there's definitely none on the mayor's leadership group. Thank you.
Pauiwi Hohaia.
Yeah, thank you. Just on 5.7, I'm not sure if this is a question for the mover or council officers, but would there be a greater level of comfort if the wording was not to require council to collect and publish data, etc., but to investigate how the council might collect and publish data, etc.?
I'm getting nods that with the leave of the mover and seconder, that can be incorporated. Councillor Randall.
Thank you.
Yes, just with respect to 5.8, how many people are currently on the Mayor's City Safety Leadership Group? And should this go ahead, how many people will that group then have?
Probably a pātai for the mayor that could be answered in debate.
Okay, that's fine if you can answer that.
All right, and our human dictionary, Geordie, it's just let me know that it's on the slide pack that we received, Pillar 4. That we have no further pātai, so
Yeah, just because I'm sort of hearing some of the questions around the mayor's sort of city safety leadership group, and I guess I have a different understanding of what the group does compared to what I've perhaps heard in the room, because I see it as a group that sort of the forum feeds the priorities of the community organisations up into the organisation, and then the purpose of the mayor's group is essentially to unblock things. So I was just wondering if you could describe what the purpose of each of those groups are, because I think that would be really important for us in making this decision about where those people might be best fit.
Sure, absolutely. The Mayor's City Safety Leadership Group has been established to provide strategic oversight and direction for the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan and its associated program of work. The advisory group brings together key leaders and decision makers to ensure a coordinated, high-level approach to city safety and wellbeing, fostering a safer, more inclusive and vibrant central city. The group meets quarterly and provides strategic input and guidance on city safety priorities. It monitors progress against the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan and its initiatives, and it champions collaboration between the key agencies and stakeholders. It supports long-term solutions to enhance safety and wellbeing in the city, and so it is strategic, high level. The City Safety Forum is more of an operational group that brings together service providers, social and community agencies, businesses and community representatives to drive the delivery of the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan. It has a strong focus on practical implementation and frontline insights, and serves as a bridge between strategic priorities and on-the-ground action, ensuring that interventions are responsive, effective and well coordinated.
Councillor Pennant.
Sorry, just following on from Councillor Rogers' question, Sahai, and because I can't remember the slide, as I remember it, most of the members of the mayoral group were government departments. Is that correct?
So the Wellington City Mission and DCM, and so there was Health, Kāinga Ora, Ministry of Social Development, Police. I'm thinking around the table, obviously our iwi partners from Ngāti Toa, Te Atiawa.
So my concern, a question is then how do people who have felt that sometimes those institutions haven't met their needs get their voice heard in that forum?
So they, obviously through the representative group in the City Safety Forum, can bring those conversations, ideas and feedback back to us, and as I said, through the advisory groups and any other forum that we hold through our engagement of this plan.
No further pārtai. Mawa e tautoko. I understand Councillor Abdurrahman is going to second the motion. Did you want to speak now? Is there any further debate? Me whānau.
Kia ora koutou, thank you. I mainly wanted to speak to point to 5.8 a bit more. So we do have mana whenua reps already on. This group and the intention of this group is more around, those who lead departments and organisations. So it's more about how they can input based on their resource and their remit. And so many groups are represented in the operational group, which can obviously grow, but that's kind of where the hardy stuff gets, discussed, put together, decided, and then it just kind of comes up to us who have the remit to be able to go, yeah, that feels about right, with their knowledge of their own, whether it's DCM or Wellington City Mission. So that is the purpose of the City Safety Group. It's not the right forum for what Councillor Pennant was suggesting. I do think the operational group is probably most appropriate because this is more of a, it's like resource-based almost. And with the rest of the amendments, I certainly support the intention of them. I think putting them explicitly in the paper today is not the right time. I think what we could do is commit to, again, taking them to the operational group as well as the strategic group and discuss them there, as this plan is a moving feast. But I think for me it's too soon to consider those because we've only just received them today, but I do support the intention. I just don't support them being put in the paper yet.
Actually, I did have a list. Apologies for the two people that put their hand up earlier to speak. Could you raise your hand again? Councillor Calvert. Apologies, forgot to write that down.
One of those rare occasions when I actually agree with the Mayor on this and her comments. Wow. I can't promise that for the rest of the day. Look, I think the Mayor's articulated it. As we've seen, we've got a bit of confusion about what actually constitutes community patrols. I agree with the sentiment of these, but I think there needs to be a bit more work and clarity. And as we've said, is the city safety plan is something that will evolve, and there'll be an opportunity to factor this in, like other things. So, look, I appreciate the sentiment, but I can't support them. Thank you.
Councillor Pennant.
I'll just tread carefully. I do appreciate these amendments and will be supporting all of them. I think having the data is absolutely critical if we are going to help stop harassment and attacks against particular groups of people, and certainly looking at anti-racism training I think is a brilliant idea. Mea whānau, I guess we've had a number of discussions just about your leadership group, and I just want to just tease out a couple of issues. One is when you say it's about those who are resourced, I guess that's my problem, because it's who has the resources is often the tricky question, and those who have the resources have a lot of control. And I guess my concern has been that those who are most marginalised, those who most need to have their voices heard when we look at this issue, need to be raised up. And in particular, I have some concerns around the inclusion of rainbow safety issues in this particular work. I just don't think we can overstate how marginalised some groups of people have been through history, through various institutions, through various political parties, through the political system. And so righting that imbalance is going to take a lot of work. And, you know, my fundamental issue, which I'll talk about in a minute, about this paper is that we're not getting to the heart of why we have a safety issue in the first place. So I think it is important that we have that representation.
I don't have anyone else on the Councillor Free.
Kia ora everyone, and I do agree with the Mayor's comments. I think you stated it very well. We understand these issues and we'd like to see more done about them. But for me, this paper, as it was, had been very well consulted on, very well put together, and thank you to the Chair for all the work that you did. But I had a chance to speak to some of our partners in the breaks that we had, and I realised how much work has actually gone into creating this and how many stakeholders have been involved. So I have to say I don't actually appreciate these fairly substantial amendments coming to us literally as we began the meeting. They're not inconsequential. We're asking, you know, for things that are actually really difficult for our staff to deliver on, and we don't know yet what budget implications they would have and what else might not get done if they were to focus on these things. I would like to suggest that, Councillor Pannett, if you really want to make a huge difference in the areas you outlined, you're not in the right place. The council is not the place to be making huge gains for, you know, lots of the marginalised groups that you're talking about in the way that you're talking about. And I would just like to stick with the work program that we've got, stick with the paper we've got, vote for it, make some progress, let this evolve. Find out the officers have got a steer on this without us actually having to formally pass this amendment. They've heard some of our concerns. They've got a steer. They'll be looking through the course of this work for what else can be done. But we don't need to tie them up in knots by passing these last-minute amendments.
Pauiwi Kelly.
I'll just be quick because I essentially took everything that you said, Sarah, and I won't be supporting any of these amendments because essentially our speakers, both Murray and Steve, I know them and I know the mahi they do and how deeply ingrained they are in the community. So their comments were really crucial, I think, to what we heard this morning and gave us an opportunity to ask them questions in the break as well. But essentially, I think what they were saying is they're happy with this. They endorse it. They put a lot of work into it, and I think us coming in and trying to tweak things, which essentially a lot of this already is in there. It's just rewriting it in different words, and it's unnecessary. And I want to thank the chairman for the work that you've done in getting us to where we are today.
Pauiwi Hohaia.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be really quick. I mean, I've kind of been swayed by the recent debate, Councillor Free, Pauiwi Kelly and the Mayor and others. So I won't be supporting 5.5, 6 and 8, but I like to think data is really important, and I am supportive of still investigating how we might collect and publish that particular data. So I'll be supporting 5.7. Thank you.
Jiraman.
Kia ora whānau. You have two options today. You either appreciate this and support, or you don't appreciate and you don't support. And for those who advocated on this, I would like to say, go hard again. And for those who previously supported the establishment of ethnic communities, congratulations for empowering a young person like Workina, who coming and bringing such brilliant ideas to the table. To Workina and the community, you know what you are against. We need to work hard. This must change. Thank you.
Here, Councillor Winera, e pairangi a. Ana kia koe, te whakakutu, kia koe te tika.
Ai, ke te pirangi. Kia ora, everyone. I'm just going to refocus this conversation a wee bit and welcome John, who's coming in with his green button ready to go. So, we've been told by our staff that one of these amendments is feasible and the other two are investigative amendments. I accept that 5.8 may be somewhat controversial, but I've heard a lot around the table of people who agree with the sentiment. Well, if you do indeed agree with the sentiment, then agree to investigate. It does us no harm, it costs us very little money, it costs us fairly little time, and it allows us to be better equipped for the implementation and development of this plan as it will inevitably develop, being a living document as it is. So I guess I would simply just say, if you have any sympathy whatsoever for the intent of this amendment, then allow our staff to investigate, allow that due diligence to be done, and allow us to not be satisfied with good, as it is a good plan. And I was prepared to vote it through, but this amendment allows the plan to be better. And so if you agree with that principle, then I encourage you to support 5.5 through 7. Kia ora.
E nai nei ke putitia te motini, I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. We will, I'm hearing in the room we would like to take them separately. Can we do 5? Righto, let's start with 5.5.
Terry, I'm voting against all of them.
Thanks, Tim. That's clear.
Yep, thank you.
Chair, I'm voting against 5.5.
Or could we update the screen to reflect Councillor Brown's vote?
The voting remote is unable to work, so we will note it as against.
Kua nere, that is not passed. Voting on 5.6. Yep.
Also against.
Likewise.
Kua nere, that has failed. 5.7.
Against.
Yes from me. Thank you.
Ko mana, that is carried. 5.8.
Against.
Likewise.
Kua nere, that has failed. Righto, we are back to debate. I am hearing and seeing the tired faces in the room. I would like, well, I will just get a bit of a vibe check on this. Should we move the next amendment and then go to lunch so people have time to process that amendment?
I think we should persevere through. If councillors want to waste all of our time with this, let's get it done. 5 and get it done.
5 and get it done. over to you, Councillor Pennant, to move the amendment.
So, thank you, Chair, and I hear the mood of the meeting, so I will try to be very succinct. So,
Team, could we please have a bit of silence?
Thank you. So I'd just like to thank officers, submitters, the stakeholders for their work, and I particularly want to acknowledge the victims and survivors of crime in the city, in particular Luke Smith. No one could ever understand, I imagine, the grief that the family is going through. I'd like to thank Councillor O'Neill for talking about all the positive things that have happened. It was always good to celebrate progress. I am moving this amendment. I do appreciate the officers making significant changes to the paper, but I do feel that 3 of these paragraphs still link in potential criminal behaviour of the homeless population and fears of the general population. This was not supported by any data, but people's perceptions. I do appreciate that officers have tried to challenge that discomfort, but I still think it's very much there in black and white. I am still strongly of the view, Councillors O'Neill and Councillor Paul and I worked hard to get agreement to do a homelessness strategy. It was agreed. There has been no process around removing it from the work program, so from a process point of view, I do think it's a bit tricky. But I think we have to, experts on tap, not on top, the advice of our people working in this area are very useful, but I think also that we have to, when we look at homelessness, not just talk about, we don't have enough housing, which is a major problem, but there are other issues, and we do need to think, rather than just going to housing and providing services, about belonging, about community, and about useful activity. So that's just there. Look, my fundamental issue with this paper is that it does not want to talk about what is causing the harm and the violence. And I appreciate that that is an uncomfortable conversation to have. None of us really want to look at that or look at our role in it. It is very difficult, but we must. So the fact that there is young women experiencing high levels of harassment, that our rainbow communities also feel unsafe, is something that we need to talk about. And there are other groups, which is why I worked with Councillor O'Neill on one of the amendments. We do not experience a lack of safety evenly. Speaking, I think, in something which I think I can do, if you are a woman or a girl in our society, you will have been taught right from the beginning that some people are not safe, that some places are not safe, and that you have to modify your behaviour. And actually, we need to be talking about the perpetrators. I appreciate that we can't do everything, but we can do some things. So things like the rainbow crossing are an absolute challenge to the status quo, and it is absolutely fantastic that it is there and that we have defended it in court. There are many, many small things that we can do to fight that culture of toxic masculinity and of racism. I know that we need to do something, but I think we always need to do the right thing that will actually work, supported by evidence. I just feel like we're spending a lot of money to maybe do a few things that will help a little bit, but will not take us anywhere closer. We have been talking about violence in our city for at least a good 60 years, and it still continues. And just to conclude, the LAP, look, I agree it's not a priority. I'd rather it go into more homelessness work, but I am deeply concerned to hear from people that, alcohol is critical to vibrancy. I do not agree with that. I think by the time people have had 2 drinks, probably at most, you've probably got your benefits from the vibrancy. We need to develop a culture of, and from a health point of view too, if we are going to deal with all the harm and the violence that alcohol causes or facilitates, then we need a different culture where actually going out and having a good time does not mean ingesting a class 1 carcinogen.
there are lots of ways of having a good time. I personally have not met that many people that are improved by alcohol. I like people just the way they are. You are good as you are.
Sometimes improved.
And I think so I think that that's the kind of culture, and I think it's deeply problematic that we have enhanced that alcohol culture by doing things like trying to hock off spirits to young people, for example, which I just think is outrageous. So it is a shame that we're not going to do it in a way because there is so much work to do around alcohol, and the government piked out over a decade ago, and we should have got more progress. But I think, just in conclusion, we will not stop, in my space, sexual violence until we deal with men and the toxic masculinity, and for other groups, we will not be able to do the same unless we do the same thing in other groups. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Councillor Panic, can I just clarify, was that also your speech to the substantive? Yes. Fantastic. I love to hear that. Colleagues, any pātai? I see none. Mawa e tautoko. I understand Deputy Mayor Fern is going to second. Would you like to speak? He taka hei taupatu. Any further debate? I will just say probably just one sentence, which was to correct removing the paragraphs that talk about the perception of homelessness contributing to people feeling unsafe. That claim was not supported by data, but I just wanted to correct and state that the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan outlines the residents monitoring survey, and it listed rough sleeping and visible homelessness as one of the top 2 results for declining negative perceptions of safety. So there is data to substantiate discussing the perception that people have with safety. But I share a lot of the sentiments of Councillor Pannett as well. Councillor Chung.
I'm not comfortable with the way that we describe some of these things, and I've spent a lot of extensive time talking to these people, and I think that when you come out with say that the homelessness strategy should be taken away to be worked on separately, I don't think it's the right thing. I think I agree with what council officers have actually done, that it is part of the whole safety issue. And some people, they do feel intimidated by people being on the street, whether they're genuinely homeless or not. So I think that it's all part of the same issue. We don't know what a lot of people actually think about some of these things unless we've actually experienced it. And I've mentioned to you before that I was walking along Lambert Quay, following 4 tourists that just got off the cruise ship, and they were approached by this man sleeping there or sitting there on the footpath, and he went to ask them for money. And so they moved around him, and then they said to each other, "There's a lot of beggars in the city, aren't there?" And and this is the impression of people that are just jumping off a ship to actually see what Wellington is like. So people do think different things, and people do look at things differently. And I think that to try and put these things into a box and to say that this is what they are, this is what we should be doing, I think it's just presumptuous. So I'm not comfortable about these amendments. So I'm going to vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to provide a little bit of procedural clarification. So, Steph, would you be able to provide that clarification?
So we were just wanting to clarify, so currently the amendment states that there is a removing of number 2, but because that's in the substantive, that would be the same as voting it down in the final vote. So we're just maybe recommending that that's removed from the amendment. Yeah, and that would just need leave of the meeting.
Just to make it easier.
Hang on. Could people use their microphones, please?
Because paragraph 62 is in the substantive that we need to agree to this.
Sorry, maybe I misspoke. So Amendment 2, not 8.2, but Amendment 2, which says, note that the city safety plan and wellbeing plan have been developed and etc. Because that is in the substantive, removing that is the same as voting against it in the final vote, which would be a direct negative. So we're just suggesting procedurally that that is removed, and if people wish to remove it from this amendment, and should people wish to remove that from the substantive, that they vote against it in the final vote.
Does that require leave of the meeting?
Sorry, I don't know if the mic's working. It is in the capacity of the chair to determine whether an amendment's ruled out of, is not accepted. So we would suggest that the chair determines whether they, how they would rule on that.
So why can't we vote against this now, and then when the substantive comes up, vote for it? Well, why don't you just take it out?
I'm hearing from the mood of the table that to not grant leave for this amendment.
Oh, does it have to be unanimous?
What does that bring us back to? Team, no cross-talking. I'm going to ask that there's order.
Sorry, it might help for me to clarify a little bit here. So the substantive motion had 2 in it, and then this is an amendment that removes 2, which would essentially be negating the substantive motion. And so it's within the capacity of the chair to determine whether they want to make a ruling on that. So they could rule it as an amendment not accepted, so to remove 2 from this amendment, and leave it to the substantive vote to make a decision on that. If the chair doesn't wish to rule it out of order, then we can simply go to a vote on it as part of the amendment, and then you're to remove it.
Am I able to rule the amendment to remove 2 and 3 as out of order, but still allow people to vote on 3 and 8 on the screen?
So I think in this case 3 is replacing the existing 3, so there's not any need to make a ruling if 3 is perfectly fine here, but you can rule on 2.
Rule on 2 that is out of order. We will proceed with the debate. I seem to have lost my speaking list. Is there any further debate? I see none. We will go to right of reply. Councillor Pennant. Team, procedurally several times I go, there is no more debate, and then 3 people put their hands up, so please just do that early. Don't worry about strategically holding to the last minute. Councillor Free.
Yes, I think this has been a most frustrating exercise and a real lesson in why we don't bring amendments that substantially change things at the last minute. I cannot believe that a plan which has been put together with the help of our district, our city missioner, who I deeply respect, and we've heard from other submitters that they want this homelessness to be incorporated in the strategy, and it's the ideal place to have it. And it gives us far more levers to work with our partners than trying to go it alone. I cannot believe that at the last minute we've got this confusing thing in front of us, that we're undoing things, fiddling with a plan that's been thought through for months. And I'm pretty angry, actually. And I'm also really object to the genderisation of toxic masculinity being brought into this argument. We're talking about gender violence here. And we start to talk about toxic masculinity as if all men are toxic masculines. And what are we doing to the young boys in our city when we start gendering people? What are we doing to the really good men around this table when we start to do that? So I just took the time to look up toxic femininity, and yes, it exists. So let's stop it, please. I find it offensive. I've got a beautiful husband, two amazing sons and 4 grandsons, and I'm not having them gendered like this. I'm just not. Let's talk about the specifics of behaviour, but let's not label our men. Yeah. So that's just, I had to speak because it's actually getting to me. There are such good men. And look at our city missioner. That's a man. Don't offend people unnecessarily by this.
Ray, you have already spoken to this amendment. Do you need to speak again, or can we just go to right of reply? Thank you, I really appreciate that.
Just extremely briefly, perceptions I do not give a great deal of weight to, which is why I wanted data. I voted for it, and I did ask who were the perpetrators, because we know that we do have a problem with gendered violence in this country. It's very well documented over many years. Number 2 was just an attempt, I just found it repetitive, and I was just doing an editorial job. It wasn't being meant to be difficult. Councillor Free, I have had, this is not a fair criticism. I was one of the people that got the homelessness strategy, as I mentioned, through in 2023. We have had a number of conversations with officers about this. I got my amendments. They didn't accept my concerns. Got the amendments through, sent it through for officer advice. I don't think that is fair. And just the point around toxic masculinity, I also, of course, have a wonderful son and a late wonderful partner. But what this is about looking at the way that we hold up ideals of masculinity, and the number of men who, and there is not just a few, it's not everyone, but there are a lot who do engage in very problematic behaviour, and that's what I want to challenge. Kia ora.
I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded.
Are we voting?
Division is signalled. Yes, we are voting. We're voting on them all together.
I'm opposed.
Registered Tim.
Thank you.
Pauiwi Hohaya.
Sorry, it's in the chat, but yeah, I'm against.
Thank you. Tim, we will correct the record to reflect Tim's voting. That right, that takes us back to debate. Councillor McNulty.
I'm going to talk incredibly quickly. I'm pleased at least one councillor here is doing something constructive, and that's Councillor Matthews, who's down the road at Parliament putting forward our RMA submission. So something at least productive has happened from these councillors today. The dictionary definition of hubris is extreme and unreasonable feeling of pride and confidence in yourself. People here know better than Murray Elridge and Stephen Turnock, it seems. I just want to point to a line that Murray said, consultation with council. We've had consultation with council in ways we haven't seen in quite a while. DCM as an organisation, we know what works. Too often this table, perfect becomes the enemy of good enough. This is a flexible, adaptable plan. If measures don't work, they can change, try new things, and money can go elsewhere. Fundamentally, it's actually not the central role of council to hold up this mahi, but we know it's best for our city to do this. And doing nothing is not an option, and I feel like our officers are damned if they do and damned if they don't. don't. Reality is the lowest paid person at this table is earning $109,000 a year. Maybe they spend 5, 10, even 20 hours a week in the city safety sphere, but we are at best informed bystanders rather than subject matter experts like Murray and Stephen. So I'm going to listen to the experts, the people on the front lines doing this mahi. Today has been a catastrophic, cataclysmic waste of time, but I do finally just want to give a mihi to Councillor O'Neill. You have been a consistent voice for evidence-based harm reduction. You've pushed this work through quietly and diligently through the committee, and I know when everyone leaves this council, they hope they've done something to make the city better, safer. You've done that, so kia ora.
I just wonder if I can move a procedural motion.
What is the motion?
The motion is to move, a closure motion to move to the vote.
No. I believe...
If I can.
Yep. The chair can deem to accept the motion. I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded. Do we vote on the closure motion?
I'm in favour.
So this is the motion to close debate, and then we will hold the debate on the substantive after.
Tim, you supported one of my amendments.
Yeah, because I'm leaving the country.
Pauiwi Hohaya, do you support the motion to close debate?
Sorry, I was typing really slowly, yes.
Ko mana, that is carried. Right, even though right of reply is entitled, I will leave it at that. I think we've had many, many discussions about this. Oh, because the motion passed, there's no further debate.
Terry, and I hope this is...
We will have a proper launch with of the strategy with city partners and have everyone together as well. Righto. Did we want to take anything separately? No. Fantastic. I now put the motion which has been moved and seconded.
I'm in favour.
Apologies, Tim. What was that?
I'm in favour. I'm agreeing.
Oh my gosh, my mic. Oh no, it's not working. But obviously, I'm in favour. Ko mana, that has carried. Now move on to agenda item 2.2, decision register updates and upcoming reports. We will take as read. I understand that there is an amendment by Councillor Calvert.
Or not?
We just chuck it up on the screen.
Just save something there.
Let's just include it in the substantive. He pātai o? I see no pātai. He taka he taupatu. Is there any debate? Oh, let's go. I'm going to move this paper. Councillor Calvert is seconding.
Yep.
Folks, is there any debate?
Sorry, Chair. I'm a bit confused. Is there an amendment?
There is an amendment Hohaya that's up on screen. We'll make sure that's shared.
Can I just ask a procedural question about that? Because that's not usually what I would... This is about decisions made. All we've done is just...
No, it's about the forward programme and it's noting.
So I don't quite understand
there's no paper.
Whether this can be...
I'm going to ask for order because if four people are talking at once, none of us are going to get any answers. I'm going to ask Steph if this kind of amendment fits within.
I'm happy to pull it and put it on to the next forward because I don't want to get into debate. It's all because We had a number of public participants about the Ian Galloway. We had lots of emails.
It's on the full program.
No, it is on the forward, but it's just noting it is on the forward program. It's just what's coming up in the future. So it's really just adding some clarity. So they, but I'm happy to. I don't want to stop things. It was really just. There's no decisions. It's just showing that there is work going ahead at the moment by council, and there was no other way to put it in. But I'm happy to bring this amendment or put it in the substantive for the next paper.
I will use the chair's ruling that this amendment is relevant to the decision register updates and upcoming reports. Is there any debate? Councillor Pannett.
I respect your ruling, Chair, but I don't want to see this as a matter of process. Every time we have a debate being put in this, the correct form is to put an item on the forward program, and that's really all we can do.
Is there any further debate?
Just clarify that this consultation is on the forward program and it will be coming back to us. It's just the date's not on there.
All right, is there any further debate? I see none. Did people want to take number 2 separately? I'm not hearing anyone wants to take number 2 separately.
Yes, I did. Sorry.
Okay, well, please say that.
Sorry, I did say.
Yeah. Voting on number 2.
I'm in favour.
Apologies, I think no back. Oh, yeah, never mind. Kua mana, that has been carried. Voting on the substantive for this paper now.
I'm in favour.
Same here.
Jordy.
Kua mana, that has carried. Please join me in the closing karakia. Unuhia, unuhia, inuhia, ki te uru tapu nui, te watia, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua, e te takatu. Ko e rā i rongo, whakairia ake ki runga, kia wātia, ai rā, ko wātia.